In my soul form, I, John, became self-aware. I had been reincarnated as a sword. Over hundreds of long years, I met many masters, and I turned them into heroes whose names would go down in history. Then, I met the companion of my life, a boy born in the nameless village of Leonbeck. Together, we wandered the world, and we achieved feats that no one could match. On a frozen day, lightning struck down relentlessly. In an instant, the explosion created a violent tremor. That man had to struggle to hold on to John. Kneeling, he still tried to fight against the harsh conditions. But before him stood a ferocious and evil dragon, giving its opponent no rest. It began to roar. The situation forced the man to stand up once more. Just then, the evil dragon unleashed a huge stream of magical power. Without hesitation, the man released his own mana. With an explosion of power, Thienik was instantly dispelled by him. Then, the man smiled and said, "Let's go, my friend." As soon as he finished speaking, he charged straight for his target. Sword in hand, the evil dragon only had time to see his determined expression. In the next moment, he leapt high into the air. His sword swing aimed straight for the evil dragon's head. And then, finally, a precise, finishing slash was delivered. When we defeated the white dragon of the frozen mountains, my companion became the ruler of a kingdom. As for me, I became part of the legend of the dragon lair. Back then, he entrusted me. John, please, take care of my descendants. And this I remembered, as it was passed down to the descendants of that companion. Opening my eyes again, I, John, sensed a commotion. Having just woken up, I was very annoyed. Why is it so noisy? But a minute later, John had to exclaim, "How distracting. What insolent fool there is to shake this body." Meanwhile, Arwin was shouting, "From now on, I am the master of this sword." The others hurriedly tried to stop him. "Your Highness," the soldiers tried their best to persuade him. "That is an item that no one but His Majesty is allowed to touch. Please return it to its place." Hearing this, John showed his surprise. "What? A prince?" He immediately looked back at Arwin. "This pig?" On the other hand, the boy continued to cause a scene. "Silence. There is nothing in this country that I am not allowed to touch." This made it very hard for John to believe. This can't be. He then quickly activated judgment. I must check with my power. When the information panel appeared, John was truly speechless. Seeing the name Leonbeck, he's definitely a descendant of my companion. However, he muttered in disbelief. A descendant of the Sword Saint has this kind of potential. And Ran was fuming. As long as I have this, neither His Majesty nor the nobles. His tone became resentful. Will be able to ignore me anymore. Seeing this, John felt even more contempt. What a ridiculous fool, daring to spout such nonsense. But the boy didn't know. So he yelled, "Oh great dragon lair, lend me your power." John immediately retorted, "Are you insane? Why would I ever lend my power to someone like you?" Despite this, Arwin arrogantly screamed, John." He swung the sword wildly, terrifying everyone. John, Your Highness, please calm down. You are not allowed to draw a sword in the royal palace." But their pleas were met with anger. "Shut up. How dare you give me orders? Do you want to die?" While running, he threatened, "Once I have the power of John in my hands, you trash will." At that moment, Arwin's body suddenly stumbled. Accidentally, the blade turned towards him. And in a flash, the sharp point drew closer and closer. The next second, the soldiers' faces turned grim. Adelia quickly covered her mouth to stifle a scream. The next second, a panic shout rang out, "Your Highness!" Amidst the situation, John also panicked. No. As for them, they hurriedly told each other, "Call the physician immediately." And when he looked back at Arwin, he realized, the one who got stabbed by the sword is this bastard. Suddenly, John's consciousness began to fade. My vision is getting blurry. Though unwilling, he only had time to think. At this rate, I'm going to pass out for the first time in my entire life as a sword. If Prince Arwin ascends to the throne, this kingdom will have no future. He inherited none of the royal talent but is first in line when it comes to arrogance. He has no ability. Yet his greed is the greatest in the kingdom. He is a stupid, lazy, and cruel pig. That is the first prince. And ran Leonbeck, like a dark cloud covering the kingdom's future. After that prince was stabbed and lingered at death's door before waking up, a strange rumor began to spread. The servants started gossiping about Prince Arwin. Lately, it seems he's changed a little. That's right. He doesn't flip the dining table like before. And he doesn't hang out with his gang of thugs anymore. Right? Then they started to mock. Even the infamous first prince must feel some shame. Isn't he just lying low out of fear? Just you wait. After a while, he'll be back to his old ways. In contrast, Arwin was in his room. However, the protagonist of the story, Prince Andrian, couldn't care less about those rumors. I can't believe I. His mind was now in utter turmoil. Killed my companion's descendant and took over his body. Just then, an announcement came from outside. Your Highness, His Majesty has arrived. Please quickly arrange your attire to receive him. Hearing this, he furrowed his brow. That old man didn't even visit when I was about to die. Why is he here all of a sudden? The servant beside him quickly reminded him. Your Highness, the sharp-haired royal knights are very close by. She said timidly. Please be mindful of your words. His tutor appeared with a stern look. I heard you return from the brink of death. But it seems that spirit of yours is still the same. He conveniently gave an order. You may leave. In any case, His Majesty isn't expecting anything. However, Enrian was still bewildered. Who is this? Then, his tutor suddenly questioned. We still have a master-student bond. Yet now you act as if you don't know me. These words helped him guess. He's this pig's tutor. Huh? Meanwhile, the man continued to call out. Your Highness. Enrian hesitantly replied. My memory is a mess. I feel like I remember who you are. But maybe not. The man revealed a look of disbelief. Huh? Don't tell me. Just then, a voice cut them off. His Majesty, the King, has arrived. Still, Enrian was very indifferent. The King? He lazily thought to himself. So he must be this bastard's father. But very quickly, his eyes widened in shock. He's better than I thought. Before Enrian, the Emperor stood coldly. I thought that as time passed, the blood of the lion had been diluted into the blood of a dog. He had to admit it himself. But looking at the King, maybe that's not the case. The Emperor suddenly spoke up. Seeing as you don't even greet your own father, it seems that surviving a brush with death couldn't change who you are. His tutor immediately reported. Your Majesty, I've just heard that His Highness's memory is not intact. A soldier hastily exclaimed. My goodness. What a disaster. Why didn't the royal physician report such a serious matter to your Majesty? Summon the royal physician to examine His Highness at once. Afterwards, Enrian was examined again by the royal physician. However, the man was certain. I find no abnormalities in His Highness's royal person. Then the royal physician made a diagnosis. However, it's possible this is a temporary condition caused by mental shock. The Emperor then muttered to himself. Amnesia. As for him. He felt worried. Did he figure it out? However, the Emperor said sarcastically. How convenient it would be if you were to say you remember nothing now. Just like that. The Emperor directly criticized him. Does that mean everything you've done until now never happened? Before he could understand, the Emperor continued. Sometimes, people make wrong choices. One can commit acts condemned by the whole world. If they later realize their mistake and never repeat it, then that can also be called a learning process. With disappointment, the Emperor growled. But you have forgotten all of that. Not finished, he also blamed him. Because everything has become as if it never happened. You haven't taken a single step forward from your past mistakes. Finally, the Emperor decreed. And in the future, you will never be able to improve. Now his tutor quickly interjected. Your Majesty, please calm your anger. Even so, Enrian was quite shocked. He's cursing me right to my face. Seeing him turn away, he silently cursed. Damn it, I've really stepped in it. Forget being treated like a prince. It seems I'm not even considered human. Then Enrian looked down at this body. Just what kind of life did this kid live? Just then, he was suddenly pulled away. And then, the Queen immediately hugged him and comforted him. I heard everything. You must be so confused. Your memory will return soon. She even held him tighter. No. That trivial past. What does it matter if you don't remember? Next, the Queen said mournfully. I can't believe your beautiful face has become so gaunt. My poor son. And Rin shuddered upon hearing this. Where exactly is he gone? In return, she forced a smile. Anyway, I'm so happy that you were able to open your eyes and wake up like this. At this moment, the Queen gently advised. You must never touch dangerous things like that again. You hear? If something bad had happened and you didn't wake up. Before she could finish, she bit her lip bitterly. Then the Queen continued sadly. I truly dare not imagine it. And Rian felt a little guilty. I'm sorry, but your son is already dead. Just like that. The deceit within him lasted until night. This is truly a burden. It was a while before the Queen let him go. I'll visit you again. Rest well. With that, Enrian could finally take a breath. And he took this opportunity to reflect on everything. My companion begged me to take care of his descendant. And yet I killed one. Even if it wasn't intentional. I was the one who ended his life. The more he thought, the more wistful he became. Since things have come to this, what can I do? I must live a good life for the one who has passed as well. Then Enrian made a resolution. Reincarnated as a sword. I've spent my entire life cleaning up other people's messes. Even if this is a fat and untalented body. It doesn't matter. With that thought, his hand clenched into a fist. I just need to build my strength back up. He curled his lip in a smirk of satisfaction. Do you have any idea how many kids I've raised? Without further delay, Ryan sat up. First, I need to forge a mana heart. He took a deep breath to absorb some mana. Then he focused on gathering it into a small source of energy. The mana flared up, bright as a flame. However, the next second, it vanished. Ryan himself was so shocked that his face went blank. Fear washed over him, making him sweat. The mana dispersed. His body can't accept it. Then Ryan hurriedly gathered more mana. Again, this time, he gritted his teeth. Let's try to hold on to it one more time. His whole body surged with the flow of magic. Again. However, the final result made him collapse, panting heavily, Ryan cursed under his breath. What? What kind of monstrous body is this? Now, Ryan desperately roared. If only I had my original body, I could easily modify a constitution like this by forcing mana into it. Just then, a knock came at the door again. Your Highness, forgive me for bothering you. As she entered, the maid carried a steaming bowl of medicine. This is a special restorative tonic sent by the queen. It may be a bit bitter, but it will be very good for your body. She tried to stay calm and said, so please, think of the queen's kind heart. As she finished speaking, the maid's expression revealed her fear. In her mind, she recalled the past. I hope he doesn't throw the bowl like last time. Back then, Ryan had shouted, I told you I'm not drinking any medicine. But the Andrian of now was very surprised. He immediately saw the mana. There's mana in it. Then, Ryan decisively took the bowl of medicine. He drank it all down in one gulp. This act made the maid stare at him in astonishment. On the other hand, he roughly handed the bowl back. Are you satisfied? Then go. At his request, she quickly replied, yes, Your Highness. As for Andrian, he quickly refocused. Good. Now then, one more time. His eyes shut tightly as he brought all the mana into his hand. Feeling that it was better, he breathed a sigh of relief. Fortunately, it worked. However, Ryan was still concerned. The amount of mana is still insufficient, and it's so little that it will dissipate after just one day. But, thinking this, he quickly called the maid. Hey, she responded immediately. Yes? Without beating around the bush, he asked directly, do you have any more of that stuff? A few days later, the mana Andrian produced was much greater than before. Now he was satisfied. Smiling. Finally, he immediately exclaimed. Finally, I can create a mana heart. The source of energy was then pressed into his heart. I've done this countless times before. Something like a mana heart. I can do it with my eyes closed. The shadow on Andrian's face darkened for a beat. The sensation was so real that he suddenly realized. It hurts. Come to think of it. In his mind, he briefly remembered the previous descendants. It really hurts. It feels like my internal organs are on fire. Like my chest is about to explode. At this point, Ryan suddenly came to a realization. That's right. Creating a mana heart. He struggled to breathe with each breath. Has always been this painful. But Ryan clenched his teeth again. I can't lose consciousness. Thinking of the worst case scenario, he immediately told himself, if I pass out now, I'll suffer from mana overflow. Then he tried to close his eyes to stay calm. With both hands on his heart, he constantly told himself, focus. At the right moment, Ryan clenched his hands. Grasped that massive mana that's trying to run wild. There's no need to rush. At the same time, he regulated the mana flow itself, guiding it along the path flowing along his heart to the right side. And gradually, everything became as still as the surface of water, slowly allowing the new heart to permeate. Ryan himself slowly absorbed it. A moment later, he slowly opened his eyes to check. Realizing it was stable, he exclaimed joyfully, all right. Ryan was even more excited. This time, it's not a mana heart made for someone else, but my own mana heart. And for me alone. With his pride, he shouted, I did it. It's complete. While he was celebrating, the system panel suddenly appeared. You have created a mana heart. Being so surprised, his face went blank for a few minutes. Then, Ryan paused for a moment. This is a status window? To verify, he even tried to touch it. It's just like the status notifications I used to send to my masters when I was a sword. Why is it appearing to me now? At the same time, the system suddenly activated. What? Wait. The next second, he was surrounded by countless notifications. What the hell is this? In the end, the system bestowed upon him clairvoyance and clairaudience. Ryan heard this and questioned. Powers. At that moment, his vision suddenly zoomed in. Ryan could even observe individual leaves. Indeed, I can see much more clearly than before. Not only that, he also faintly heard some voices. Inside. Sound. Can hear. What was said? Everything outside reached his ears. You don't know. His personality. He probably threw a huge fit. And Ryan immediately showed his surprise. I can even hear the noises outside the door. However, he was soon interrupted by a headache. The system also quickly reported that his mana was depleted. And Ryan suddenly understood. So that's it. So this is what extremely limited means. At the same time, he felt quite regretful, detecting everything in all directions without a single blind spot. The absolute senses I possessed as a sword are now gone. Standing in the middle of the large room, he thought to himself, right now, by scraping together this meager amount of mana, like a mouse's tail, I can only eavesdrop on sounds outside the door or see things a little more clearly. And Ryan reassured himself, perhaps things will change once I expand my mana pool. Just as he finished speaking, his stomach let out a long growl. His mood soured accordingly. I'm hungry. The servant quickly reacted. Food will be brought up immediately. In contrast, and Ryan was telling himself, first, I need to focus on adapting to this human body. Not long after the meal, the queen entered cheerfully. How praiseworthy. She praised him continuously. You drank every last drop of the tonic this mother sent you. You finally learned to cherish your own body. Just then, a person appeared, and the queen suddenly said, oh, that's right. She then asked him, do you recognize who this is? And Ryan immediately denied it. No, I don't. Hearing this, she worriedly instructed Beo. It seems he really has lost his memory. So you must help this child. Little brother. When Enrian heard this, he faintly guessed. I was wondering who it was. Turns out he's the queen's younger brother. Meanwhile, the queen was persuading him. After all, isn't he your only nephew? On this side, Boo just chuckled. Sister, you make it sound like he lost something important. It wasn't a good pass anyway. As for him, he immediately judged. Just by looking, it seems he doesn't like me. In return, he started to speak in a low voice. Let me make one thing clear. Boo directly declared, all I can do for you is help you get rid of some of that excess fat. Then he emphasized, I can't give you anything more than that. So give up any useless expectations. The queen also quickly nodded. That alone is more than enough. Even so. Boo repeated himself. Don't you forget that feeling. Amidst the situation, only he remained confused. And facing Andrian was a frightening look from Boo. When they got to the training grounds, he pushed him down without hesitation. Then, Boo announced sternly. From now on, eating, drinking, breathing, you must have my permission for everything. If you expect to be treated like a prince, then give up that idea right now. He also smirked sarcastically. Try your best. Who knows? I might change my mind and teach you a little of our family's secrets or darts. And Rain couldn't believe what he heard. How ridiculous. From the trainer who taught the undefeated knight and was the master of the founding king who built this country me. Despite this, Boo continued to criticize him. Look at all that fat of yours jiggling. You must be furious. Suppressing his anger, he spoke up. Uncle, let's make a bet. And Rand faced him directly and proposed. Within half a year, I will make you acknowledge me. I have to wipe that arrogant look off his face. At the same time, he set a condition. If I fail, I'll do whatever you say. Uncle. However, if I succeed, you must grant one of my wishes. Boo found this interesting. Afterwards, he agreed. All right, it's a deal. I should have at least something for entertainment. However, it wasn't long before Enrian screamed. This damn body. He looked at himself and regretted it. I spoke too soon. But, without a moment's hesitation, he immediately channeled mana to his legs. While jogging, Enrian thought, I have to use mana. For now, I'll focus on burning the excess fat all over my body. As soon as Boo sensed it, he was startled. That brat. Don't tell me. Just like that. He rushed over to stop him. Enrian, you. Boo deliberately slowed down to observe the mana flow around him. Next, he hurriedly asked, did you really create a mana heart? As for Andrian, the corner of his mouth lifted slightly. This? Then he pretended to boast. Yes. I just created it a little while ago. What's wrong? Do you regret making the bet already? However, what he got in return was a scolding. What the hell were you thinking? Creating a mana heart? Boo quickly questioned further. No. Forget that. Where in the world did you learn how to forge a mana heart? Look at you. It seems you don't even know what you did wrong. Enrian, on this side, was very confused. A mana heart, but the next words shocked him, is a crude technique that only low-class mercenaries learn. The words slipped from his mouth. WHA. Enrian couldn't help but shout. What? Before him, Enrian was sweating from fear. It truly is the end of an era. The previous words echoed in his head. A mana heart is just a crude technique that only low-class mercenaries learn. Aniran's expression was a mixture of shock and disbelief. When he came to his senses, he quickly asked, "What on earth do you mean?" Bu immediately replied, "It'll be faster if I show you directly." After speaking, he created a mana ring. Look closely. He was now staring with wide-eyed astonishment. Mana in the shape of a ring? Then the next second, he threw the ring at him. Just by touching it, it shattered Aniran's magic power. Bu explained at the same time. Mana chains have the property of breaking the sword aura from a mana heart. Moreover, it's much easier and more stable than a mana heart. He even added, even the L.I. family, who stubbornly clung to the mana heart, completely collapsed 100 years ago. Nowadays, no one tries to use a mana heart anymore. And Rian was now staring intently at the book. Times have really changed. He quickly skimmed through the information. Mages use circles, and knights weave chains to gather mana. A knight's level is divided by the number of chains woven: 1 chain, 2 chain, 3 chain, 4 chain, and 5 chain. Reading up to this point, and Rian judged, "I don't think it's completely useless trash." Suddenly, he mumbled a name. Stan Chingen. Stan Chingen. I feel like I've heard that name somewhere before. Very quickly, and Rian recalled an old memory. Just like that, he began to reminisce. A long time ago, Ernst had spoken up. "Are you that famous sword saint?" He took hold of him and declared, "My name is Ernst Stan Chingen. I came here to see who is more worthy of the name sword saint." The details were still clearly remembered by Andrian. "There was once a guy who came to me, using a strange heretical art that was neither swordsmanship nor magic. Along with that, he suddenly smiled. No wonder the name sounded familiar. And Rian himself grew a little curious. So, what happened to that guy in the end?" The next morning, the new day began as usual. And Rian, as always, was out on the field warming up first. Just then, Bu suddenly asked, "Did you read that book last night?" As he walked over, he said, "You must now understand how foolish your choice was." However, and Rian just shrugged nonchalantly. Then he replied calmly, "I don't feel like I made a mistake. Not even a little bit." Seeing this, he sighed. "You don't want to admit it, or you still don't understand the situation?" In contrast, and Rian confidently showed off his mana. "Not all mana hearts are the same." He then confidently declared, "The so-called difference in class. Have you ever heard of it, uncle?" Even so, Bu was still very contemptuous. "I was wondering what you were blabbering about." He then told him a story. "Sometimes, among the mercenaries, there are people like you who fantasize about being some hero from centuries ago. Do you know what happens to them?" Bu emphasized their fate. "They all fall, not even making it past 2 chains." He then provoked him. "If you're different from them, try defeating a chain knight." Bu chuckled smugly. "Then I will become your guardian, as your mother wishes." Facing him, and Rian replied calmly, "Whether having you as a guardian is a good thing for me or not, I'm not so sure." Just like that, the atmosphere between them instantly turned cold. After a moment of silence, Bu suddenly asked, "Did you just doubt my qualifications as a guardian?" Along with that, he released his authority. "I am a count of the kingdom and the commander-in-chief of the Northern Army." Immediately after, Bu stomped his foot hard, master of the Black Spear Cavalry and one of the 5 silver lions serving his majesty. The pressure around him immediately exploded. The man who has woven for chains. Bu's eyes also lit up. A 4-chain knight. Next, he threatened in a louder voice, "Wilbur Nell. That is the name of the man who might be standing behind you." And Rian, on this side, seemed to be pushed back. Is that qualification enough? At the same time, the royal knights began to make their move. The swords they drew were extremely decisive. From Bu's side, he was quickly surrounded. "Stand down, Count L. H." Even so, he only replied with a smug look. Meanwhile, Adrian also smirked. "Don't you go back on your word later." A while later, he was so tired he lay on the ground. That's enough for today. Because the training was over, and Rain could rest for a bit. However, he himself was still trembling. That was a close call. In his mind, and Rain suddenly remembered Bu. "Daring to challenge me. Thinking you'll get my recognition with that kind of guts. 2 chains? You'd be lucky to even beat a 1-chain knight." As he thought, he silently cursed in his mouth. That devil-like bastard. When he returned to his room, someone suddenly greeted him. "Your Highness, I have been waiting for you." And Rayan immediately exclaimed, "The royal physician." He also replied cautiously, "I am grateful that you still remember this humble servant." In response, he asked him blankly, "Why is the royal physician here?" The physician quickly explained, "Her Majesty the Queen has ordered magical treatment for you." With that, he gently invited him. "Come, Your Highness. This way please." However, Rayan immediately objected. "No." Without a moment's hesitation, he dismissed him. "I don't need it. So get out." Then, Rayan cursed, "Are you trying to make all the hell I went through today go to waste?" Beside him, looked at him with apprehension. A few days later, it was another beautiful day. However, Jillian barged in aggressively. "Oh, brother, you're here too." As soon as they met, he acted arrogant. Anrian, who was eating, had to pause, putting the last bite in his mouth. He wondered, who is this guy now? Just then, Cuss reminded him. That is His Highness, the third prince. Anrian was quite surprised to hear this. The third prince? Is that him? As for Jillian, he continued nonchalantly. I heard you had an accident, but you look better than I thought. What a shame. He just replied inferently. So, what do you want to say? You just came here to cause trouble. Being a prince must leave you with a lot of free time. This remark made him grimace. What right does the fool who stabbed himself with a sword have to talk? But putting that aside for a moment, Jillian said casually, I just heard some interesting news. His tone gradually became sarcastic. I heard you made a bet with Countel. About fighting a chain knight. At the same time, Jillian chuckled about it. Without a moment's hesitation, Jillian suggested, what do you think if your opponent is me? After that challenge? And Rian just nodded. I see. Even so, he was still quite annoyed. What the hell was that guy just now? Why are all the Leon Beck descendants like this? At this point, Cuss explained again. His Highness the Third Prince, Jillian, has been famous for his swordsmanship talents since he was young. He asked back in surprise. What? That brat? Faced with the question, Cuss recounted. He wove to chains at the age of 14. It was indeed very fast. And Rian couldn't help but exclaim. Is that so? Suddenly, a servant hurriedly reported. Your Highness, I'm sorry to interrupt. But, she carried a stack of letters and said. There are these letters for you. Aniran's eyes immediately filled with suspicion. Letters? Why are all these people who never paid any attention to this body before suddenly? As he looked through the letters, his eyes narrowed slightly, and Rian continued to remain silent, making them very curious. Meanwhile, he slowly read the words in the letter. I apologize for the incident last time. Your Highness, I humbly request a duel. If your Highness is still having trouble finding a dueling opponent, please give me the opportunity first. Then Rian quickly concluded. In short, this is a legal opportunity to beat up that scoundrel. That's what they mean, isn't it? A burst of anger made him scowl. It seems I've become an easy target, haven't I? Then Enru immediately called out. Hey! She quickly responded. Yes? At this moment, he angrily made a request. Write down the names of all those who sent these letters for me. After that meal, Boo suddenly threw out a sword today. And Ran looked at him with confusion. Boo didn't beat around the bush and got straight to the point. Pick up the sword. Next, he explained. You have to know at least a little swordsmanship for the bet to have any value. Right? I don't want to hear any excuses that you lost because you weren't taught the basics. Seeing this, he thought as he picked up the sword. He could have just handed it to me nicely. What a strange personality. Just then, and Rain suddenly shivered. His whole body started to tremble. My muscles hurt so much. And Boo quickly noticed. Wait. He held him back and asked. You haven't been receiving magical treatment. In return, Enru answered in surprise. As a knight, you should know this well. He calmly pointed out the issue. Magical treatment only restores muscles to their original state. It doesn't help them grow. Boo nodded in understanding upon hearing this. Right. Afterwards, he returned to his serious demeanor. Anyway, that's not what I intended to talk about today. Boo then drew his sword. I won't do this many times. So watch carefully. He simultaneously channeled mana into it. This is the technique that the kingdom's knights learn to build their foundation, the kingdom's training sword. For a moment, the sword's movement slowed. Then at the right moment, Boo's eyes widened. Each sword stroke was swung with great decisiveness. Not only that, he turned and swung the sword to the left. Next, he changed direction and slashed to the right. Finally, he gripped it tightly and raised the sword high. On the final blow, Boo slashed out with a wind-cleaving strike. The dust around him was blown away by the sword's path. And Andrian was now so shocked his face was blank. Gradually, he started to ask, did you just say that was the swordsmanship knights learn to build their foundation? Having been caught, Boo silently clicked his tongue in annoyance. But he quickly admitted, because it's a training sword style, it might lack sharpness, but it's very faithful to the fundamentals. So there's no better swordsmanship for a beginner. With your talent, it might even be a bit much for you. As soon as he finished, Boo suddenly heard laughter. On this side, Enrian was covering his face and laughing loudly. No matter how much time passes, he was remembering an old memory. The dragon lyre, the great sword dart that once beheaded even the mad dragon. As he thought, he found it hard to believe, is now being considered a mediocre training sword technique. Meanwhile, Boo spoke up to remind him. Of course, this alone won't be enough to win the bet. After mastering the basics, You can ask your mother to hire another teacher, or. However, he cut him off right away. No need. And Ren flatly declared, I will not learn any other swordsmanship because this is more than enough. Faced with that determined expression, Bu slightly raised an eyebrow. In the end, he just said inferently, do as you wish. Just like that. And Ren practiced swinging his sword continuously, all the while contemplating the fact that the Dragonliar sword style is now considered a mediocre training technique. And Rian lifted his sweat-drenched face. Though I don't want to admit it. Perhaps it's a natural phenomenon. He soon realized one thing. Because that Dragonliar sword is lacking the will to slay dragons. After that, he was certain. How can those who have abandoned the mana heart and forgotten how to channel their will into their swords have the eyes to recognize the true value of the Dragonliar? At that moment, Bu suddenly blocked his sword. This unexpected action made Enrian freeze. On the other hand, he diligently instructed. Power isn't transferred to the sword just because you tense your arms. Have you already forgotten what I taught you? While guiding him, Bu tapped his stomach. Focus the strength in your abdomen. Next, he sharply tapped Andurin's leg. And your legs too. That bit of pain made him kneel down. You have to apply force correctly throughout your entire body to use a sword. Even so, he attentively absorbed the lesson. Right? And Rain quickly stood up. Even though my current body is just a weak and clumsy shell. Unable to even imitate a knockoff Dragonliar sword style properly. With determination, he held the sword tightly. But I will prove that the Dragonliar sword style is not some old-timer's junk to be thrown away like a pair of worn-out shoes. In the following days, his steps gradually became stronger. 1 day. 2 days. Today. And Rian continued his jogging. 3 days. After running, he practiced basic sword swings. A week has passed. In addition, he also constantly practiced mana. And then a month passed. At the moment he was trying, the system suddenly reported his progress. And Rian immediately stopped while it continued to update. Along with that, his posture had become more refined. His sword strokes became much sharper and faster. And the more he practiced, the more excited Rian became. He unconsciously immersed himself in it. The sword feels more natural than a month ago. Suddenly, a voice of intervention rang out around him. Stop. However, and Rain completely ignored it. Stronger than yesterday. His eyes were fixed on the blade. Bu still tried to call out. Stop. But he continued to swing his sword. More perfect than just now. It wasn't until he shouted loudly that he snapped out of it. Didn't you hear me say stop? His sword simultaneously broke into pieces and scattered everywhere. Amidst a torrential downpour, only 3 people remained on the field. In Andurin's hand, red blood began to spread. It even dripped down, coloring the rainwater. Only now did Ran blankly look over at his uncle. Then his gaze unconsciously drifted forward. What caught Andurin's eye was the wooden post, which had been burned to a crisp. Under the cold rain, the wooden post was still steaming. Being so surprised, Rian was frozen on the spot. Bu, beside him, exclaimed, You idiot. Training on a day like this. If that were a real sword, you wouldn't have survived. His scolding made him slowly look back. At this point, Rian noticed his calloused hands. Next, he heard the system announce that super concentration had been newly created. Unable to contain his emotions, Rian suddenly burst out laughing. But exhaustion immediately set in. To more sessions of concentration like that, and I'll probably be struck dead by lightning. Cuz saw him faint and rushed over. Your Highness. In contrast, Bu was looking at Andrian with suspicious eyes. Even though he had fainted, he still cursed under his breath. You foolish brat. Time passed by in a flash. After a while, Rian opened his eyes. As soon as he woke up, he hurriedly sat up. Did I just pass out? Now, he sighed in frustration. I don't know where the limits of this body are. As a sword, I achieved every possible accomplishment in the world. The nameless war hero, the sword saint, the king of mercenaries, the founding father, leading wars to victory, elevating the levels of both body and spirit. I have guided the path for heroes. Jaryu John, a wise advisor and an excellent teacher, but an existence that always stood on the sidelines like a third party. Returning to reality, Ran observed his burned hand. He immediately remembered the feeling from before. That's why I swung the sword until I reached that state, indulging in the feeling of turning all my sweat, effort, and labor into my own. Andurin's hand clenched lightly. At this rate, this weak body will soon collapse. I need to balance my mind and physique. With this thought, he quickly closed his eyes. It's been over a month since I formed the mana heart. I've accumulated quite a bit of mana since then. So maybe I can move on to the next stage soon. As soon as the words left his lips, the flow of mana began to surge. His mana heart simultaneously became clearly visible. The flame surrounding it immediately burned brightly. From a light blue, it turned into a more concentrated dark blue hue. The next second, Rian contained it in his hand. The muscles in his body developed at the same time. Even his bones were strengthened. When the process ended, and Rian quickly opened his eyes, clearly feeling the change. He joyfully exclaimed, "Done." Immediately, he glanced at the sword. "Let's see." And Rian didn't hesitate to grab it. When he tried a single swing, the system immediately promoted him to apprentice swordsman. With the sword in hand, he was now more confident. "With this, I can master the basics." On that same day, Bu suddenly brought up a topic. Rumors are spreading throughout the kingdom. And Rian showed his surprise. "Rumors?" At this, Bu clicked his tongue with disgust. "About that bet of yours. It's become so annoying that even I'm bothered by it." Then he urged, "Wouldn't it be better if you quickly found an opponent for a duel?" Hearing this, he exclaimed, "Oh, that?" Very quickly, Aniran's expression turned sinister. "As for the opponent, I've already decided who it will be. By the way," he also probed, "more importantly, it would be difficult for you to let me face it a chain user right away. So how about I fight a few one-chain users first?" Bu immediately replied, "That's up to you." Hearing the answer, and Rain turned to cuss. "How's that list I asked for?" At that question, he quickly took out a piece of paper. "Yes, Your Highness. I have arranged it as you requested. This is the list of those who have sent duel requests to Your Highness." At the same time, Cuss was a little worried. "However, Your Highness, are you really going to spar with them?" In contrast, Enrian asked nonchalantly, "And what if I do?" He also carefully analyzed. "Most of these people hold a grudge against Your Highness. They might intentionally harm you under the guise of a duel. However," Enrian was not afraid at all. "I know. That's why," he calmly suggested, "you'll be the referee for me." Uncle, not wanting to make things difficult for him, Enrian said, "I'm not asking for anything big. Just prevent anyone from dying during the duel. You can help me with this small favor, right?" A few days later, the day of the first match arrived. As soon as Taylor arrived, he was amazed. Before him was a magnificent tower. The first prince's palace, where that scoundrel lives. Then he began to narrate. "My name is Taylor Telham, the second son of an ordinary baronial family. A few years ago, Enrian had laughed at him. Look at that chaotic mess." He bluntly criticized them. From his clothes to his attitude, he reeks of a country bumpkin. Look at him, all excited just to attend a royal banquet. This was what had enraged him. "My father and brother suffered an indelible humiliation from that scoundrel prince." Taylor's eyes darkened. "Our family's honor fell into the abyss. And my father and brother became the laughingstock of the nobility to this day." And ran Leon Beck. Then, he stepped onto the dueling ground with determination. "Today, I will make you pay dearly for that day. I offer my greetings to Your Highness." First Prince Andrian Leon Beck. Taylor introduced himself in a low voice. "I'm Taylor, second son of the Telham family. I am a one-chain apprentice knight and the heir to the Telham family swordsmanship." But in response, he just exclaimed, "My goodness. Why be so formal for a sparring match? It's not an official duel." And Ren even wondered, "By the way, is he really a knight? He looks so weak." This time, Taylor also flew into a rage. Just as the rumors say, he's rude and arrogant, doesn't know his place, and lacks common sense. Just then, Bu interjected. "Enough." He came to his side and reminded him, "I understand how you feel, but the match hasn't even started yet. Rein in your spirit." As soon as he saw Bu, his eyes lit up. "My Countel, H." Taylor quickly bowed. "It is an honor to meet you." In return, he also replied politely, Yes, nice to meet you." And Rian nearby sighed. "People might think uncle is the prince." Bu nonchalantly reprimanded, "You should have behaved better in the past." This remark annoyed him a little. Geez, always bringing up the past. Next, he stood in the middle and announced, "Both of you, take your positions. The match begins." Taylor's face immediately turned serious, while Andrian remained nonchalant. The next second, his mana chain powerfully surged. He simultaneously curled the corner of his lips. "Well then, Your Highness." As he loudly warned, Taylor charged forward. "Please be careful." In a flash, he leapt from his spot. Taylor's whole body, along with his sword, aimed straight for Enrian. On this side, he just calmly commented, "Too many wasted movements." Then, Enrian easily blocked the blow. Only now did Taylor realize, this is a mana heart. Before he could compose himself, he was knocked back by him. Taylor exclaimed in panic, "How can a mana heart block a mana chain?" On the other hand, he was telling himself, is it because he only has one chain? Enrian now began to channel his mana. It just feels a little tingly. The change in his aura surprised the boy. The soldiers were also stunned by the sound coming from the sword. That is. As for Bu, he quickly recognized it. Sword resonance. Amidst the situation, Taylor suddenly mumbled, "Impossible." In a furious manner, he ran to attack. "This can't be happening." Because of the sudden action, he was a bit startled. However, Rane quickly defended in time. His opponent frantically unleashed a technique, forcing him to take a step back. And right after, the blades clashed forcefully again. The difference in strength made Taylor slide across the dueling ground. At this point, they were temporarily separated, and both were breathing heavily. And Rane thought to himself, they say circle mana is incompatible with heart mana. That statement is indeed true. While touching his heart, he chuckled. I feel like a mana overflow could happen at any moment. Then he began to speak. However, you said you are the second son of Baron Telham. This time, Rane directly provoked him. You need to cool that hot head of yours a bit. After saying that, he quickly closed his eyes. Focus on the senses. The natural environment changed, pushing Rane into a deep body of water. Seizing this opportunity, he reached out his hand. Awaken. And Rane grew ever closer to the evil dragon. Whether it's a demonic sword or a holy sword, or countless other names. The moment he touched it, a light flashed. A part of my soul, the sleeping evil dragon, simultaneously opened its eyes. And Rane began to merge with it bit by bit. The memory of the sword from its last activation, and the essence of the heart crafted to kill dragons. Along with the announcement from the system, the dragon liar's heart beats once. For a fleeting second, Aniran's eyes turned crimson. The evil dragon now surrounded him, forged for the purpose of slaying dragons. This is the true power of the dragon liar's sword. As for Taylor, the killing intent from the dragon was threatening him. Fear washed over him, making him tremble. What in the world is that? On the other hand, Boo shouted tensely. Stop. However, Rane had lost his reason and charged straight ahead. Seeing Aniran's appearance, he soon realized that sword was very dangerous. Flashing back to before, he had suddenly suggested something. Uncle, I have a favor to ask before we spar. Boo immediately looked over. What is it? Rane said nonchalantly. If it looks like I'm about to kill my opponent. At the same time, Boo immediately touched the sword. Then, in the blink of an eye, he was right next to him. You have to stop me. Uncle. Boo immediately sent and ran flying, causing him to crash into a stone wall. Then he continued to stand guard in front of Taylor. As for Andrian, he seemed to be unconscious after that blow. However, Boo himself had a sword pointed at him. The soldiers around immediately questioned him. Countel, what have you done? Depending on the circumstances, you could be charged with assassinating a royal. However, he spoke up to explain. Stand down. It was I who asked my uncle to do that. Cus was stunned to hear this. Your Highness. In contrast, Rane was now struggling to wipe the blood from his mouth. I did ask him. But, and in the end, he still collapsed. I never said to knock me unconscious. This made them shout loudly. Your Highness. After the battle, the dragon liar's heart gradually calmed down. Only now did he take a breath. I thought my mana heart was really going to break. At the same time, Rane reflected. My uncle's strength is truly different from those nameless one-chain knights. And I took that blow head-on. With a sense of satisfaction, he smiled. Luckily, it seems there are no long-term side effects. But it still really hurts. Then he smugly switched gears. Anyway, everything turned out fine. After all, I won the match. Just then, Boo spoke up. What are you smiling about? Rane also turned over blankly. Huh? Seeing him, he asked curiously. What brings you here? In contrast, Boo immediately questioned him. What in the world did you do? His tone was harsh. What the hell was that heretical sword? I never taught you that kind of swordsmanship. However, he still replied seriously. I was simply being faithful to the essence of the sword. This answer made him frown. Daring to talk about the essence of the sword when you've never even experienced trio combat. But Boo also gradually relaxed. So the essence of the sword, as you understand it, is killing intent. No matter how brutal and unpleasant it is also a fact. This time, Rane suddenly pouted. That's surprising. He nonchalantly mocked him. I thought you were going to lecture me that the way of the sword is the perfection of the sword itself or something like that. And then go on a long tangent. On the other hand, Boo flatly declared. I am a soldier, not a knight. I am one who walks the path of victory rather than the path of righteousness. Immediately after, he continued. However, Boo warned sternly. Your sword has gone too far. If your killing intent is too great, you won't be able to distinguish between friend and foe. Seeing this, he deliberately averted his eyes. And that's why you're making a big deal out of everything, right? To fix it. At this point, he also declared. I will be watching you. I will see if you are devoured by the demon in your heart. And after 3 days of sparring came to an end, the sword suddenly struck the ground hard. And Rane suddenly struck up a conversation. You said you are Taylor Telham, right? He then praised him sincerely. You did well over the past 3 days. In his heart, Rane thought, he had to endure sword strokes filled with unrestrained killing intent for 3 whole days. He really has endured a lot. Then he continued to guess. But it's a shame, isn't it? You would have felt better if you had at least defeated me once. But you couldn't. Taylor, on this side, just hesitated. That, before he could answer, Arwin called someone over. Bring that here. With the chest in the maid's hand, Taylor was surprised. Your Highness, what is this? He also quickly explained. I heard I did some terrible things to you in the past. I don't know if this will make up for it. Arwin sent a message along with it. But take this back to Baron Telham. It's not much. Just some gold in a letter. When he was done, he left coldly. Now go. Safe travels. Deep down, Arwin was certain. I have no obligation to clean up the mess made by that bastard. But just then, Taylor exclaimed. Thank you, Your Highness. As for him, he continued to convince himself. Anyway, if you make someone work, you have to pay them properly. Just like that, the sparring match of the scoundrel prince became a hot topic of discussion in the kingdom. His arrogance has dug his own grave. Many people discussed it animatedly. The first prince will surely pay dearly for his past mistakes. I wonder how much humiliation he'll have to endure. However, despite waiting for many days, the news everyone expected never came. When questioned, Taylor was quite surprised. You were asking how the match went. Along with him, countless people enthusiastically recounted. It seems there was some misunderstanding here. The first prince isn't as bad as the rumors say. Both sides tried their best in the match. That's all. A threat? I simply came to understand His Highness's heart. That left the majority dumbfounded. What is this? The royal family must have silenced them. Only Arwin was furiously slamming the table. And when the person involved heard this news, silence my ass. He shouted in frustration. They're only keeping their mouths shut because they're ashamed they lost to me. He even grumbled. These nobles really have too much time on their hands. They should be doing something more useful with their time. Boo. Nearby, sarcastically chimed in. You have the right to say that. Arwin ignored him and immediately looked at the person he had just fought. This time he carefully threatened. When you go out, remember to spread the result of the match too. Got it? The man heard this and quickly nodded. I will do so. Thanks to that, he was somewhat satisfied. Now the rumors should die down, right? However, it wasn't long before Arwin received shocking news. What? In front of him, the maid said apprehensively. Well, there's a rumor that Your Highness threatened him to fake the match results. Now he was at a loss for words. All his anger turned into the will to train. Forget it. Let's just train, shall we? Arwin immediately created a precise slash. Not stopping there, he swiftly delivered another blow. Then he immediately spun around, holding the weapon with both hands. As he poured his strength into the blade, he swung it down. And even though it was over, the mana around it burned brightly. Arwin's heart had not yet extinguished. Thinking about something, he suddenly asked, how many challengers are left? Cuss? He quickly replied, the one who came today is the last one. Arwin shook his head in boredom. These apprentice knights are no longer enough for me. As for Cuss, he added more information. However, this last one is a knight who has been formally trained in swordsmanship. In addition, Cuss emphasized, someone who is not satisfied with just polishing their family's swordsmanship, but a talent who joined the knight order to train. His expression immediately brightened. An apprentice knight of the Iron Lion Knight Order. Just then, Arwin also arrived. Arwin Kagayan. The gate guards couldn't help but gossip. Is that her? Look at the Iron Lion insignia on her armor. It must be her. Along with that, they passed around rumors. The flower on the cliff. The rose with thorns. The one who has broken the hearts of countless young men. On this side, she still strode slowly. The soldiers continued to marvel. She truly is a great beauty. I can't believe a woman like that would come here on her own. Suddenly, they uttered a sentence that made her stop. In a way, the prince's talent too. Arwin's gaze turned cold for a moment. Anyway, along with the judgment, her stern appearance became clear. Wouldn't it be ridiculous if the prince was embarrassed by that woman? The Iron Lion Knight Order, renowned as one of the top knight orders in the kingdom in both prestige and skill. This order's apprentice knight, Arwin Kagayan, is a promising talent who has been confirmed to become an official member. The more Arwin thought about it, the more he couldn't believe it. Why would a genius like that come to duel with me? Cuss hesitated. Well, there was a small misunderstanding between Your Highness and Lady Arwin in the past. However, he exposed himself. What misunderstanding? With my personality, I must have just picked a fight with her. Then he directly asked Adelia. You over there? Tell me what I did back then. At Arwin's request, she answered awkwardly. Well, Your Highness. And the next words terrified him. You harassed Lady Arwin. Arwin then clutched his head and wailed. This crazy bastard. Following the memory, Arwin at that time had suddenly touched Arwin. Next, he invited her. You said your name is Arwin. Indeed. You are as beautiful as the rumors say. What do you think? If you want, you can come be my personal handmaiden. However, she immediately smacked his hand away. At the same time, Arwin bluntly declared, Your Highness, a knight is not your personal property. Feeling insulted, he had angrily shouted, You ugly bitch. After hearing this story, he was completely silent. That's what I heard from the servants. Then Anrian slowly looked up. Sounds like the sick pickup line of a Rotten's comeback. In front of him, Arwin was standing there. Because there's no way anyone would look at her and call her ugly. She was cold but still beautiful in her own way. Immediately after, Arwin took the initiative to speak. It's been a long time. Your Highness, you haven't changed at all. In return, he just stammered. I don't think so. I've changed a lot. You know, to the point where the person inside is completely different. However, her gaze was still fierce. Right. This is all my karma. Just then, Adelia reported to them. Countell H. has arrived. As he walked past, Arwin suddenly paused for a few seconds. You are? Arwin introduced herself. Apprentice Knight of the Iron Lion Knight Order. Arwin Kagayan. Greetings. Countell H. After hearing her, he warned. Be careful. The prince's swordsmanship is quite vicious. Seeing this, he quickly complained. Hey, what happened to your neutrality as an observer? Uncle? In contrast, Bu seemed to ignore him and continued. Alright. Along with his command, Aniran's expression turned eager. Arwin's face immediately turned serious as well. Both of you, take your positions. Bu, still in the same spot, made the declaration. From this moment on, the duel will begin. As soon as the words were spoken, she quickly grabbed her sword. Noticing this, Anrian looked very expectant. Let's see what the Iron Lion's prodigy is made of. Just like that, he let Arwin be the first to attack. Every movement was captured by his eyes. As expected, she moves well. With the first blow, Anrian simply blocked it. But he was suddenly struck with pain. The mana is starting to flow backward. Arwin started to frown from behind their two swords. She put in a little more force and easily threw Anrian off. Next came a series of overwhelmingly superior blows. On the other hand, Anrian was gradually feeling the danger. I'm being completely drawn into her pace. This is not good. At that moment, Arwin charged like a wild beast. He also quickly activated the Dragonlayer's heart. That unusual killing intent unintentionally distracted her. Just like that, the sound of swords clashing rang out once more. The difference was that Arwin retreated on her own. She landed gently in a very skilled manner. Then Arwin, while catching her breath, was surprised. That sword. As for Andrian, he stated with satisfaction. It seems not all one-chain knights are the same. You are on a different level compared to the rest of the small fry. Taking this opportunity, he suddenly activated judgment. However, all of Arwin's stats immediately appeared before Andrian's eyes. After reading it, he quickly regained his composure. The fact that I can see this information with my limited power. The next second, Anrian suddenly gave a sinister smile. Along with him, Arwin also raised her guard. Means she is weaker or has a power equivalent to mine. In a flash, he shot forward quickly. Aniran's opponent reacted in the exact same way. As they charged at each other, he declared war on her. The real battle starts now. Just like that, the fight gradually left Anrian battered. Arwin was no better off. Constantly panting. Around them, the sky had soon turned to dusk. At this point, Bu swung his sword, signaling the end of the match. Afterwards, he made a request. Stop. That's enough for today. We will continue the match tomorrow. And Rain clicked his tongue upon hearing this. I was just about to end it. In response, Arwin confidently replied, What a coincidence. I was just about to do the same. Following his old habit, he provoked her right away. Is that so? Want to keep going? And Arwin didn't hesitate to say. As long as you want. However, Bu intervened again. Enough. He turned his eyes towards the physician. It's getting late. Both of you. Go get treated immediately. Following those words, the physician excitedly came to his side. Your Highness, let me treat you right away. While being healed, Aniran's gaze was fixed on her. Oh my. This spot is bruised too. He made no attempt to hide it. Directly observing Arwin. As if realizing it, she glanced at him. However, they both chose to ignore it and passed each other by. At the same time, they both thought the same thing. I will absolutely not lose. In the following days, the soldiers began to buzz. No one can determine a winner. One person wondered, is this the third day? While the person next to him marveled. Honestly, I'm quite surprised. He whispered in a low voice. I've heard a lot about Lady Arwin's skills. But the first prince's skills are no less impressive. Finally, they turned their attention to the training ground. I hope we get a result today. Now, Anrian suddenly suggested. Before we start the next round, I have something to say. As soon as Arwin heard this, she predicted, "Don't tell me you're going to apologize now." She immediately said sternly, "I will not accept an apology." In return, Ryan just nodded. "I understand. You want to regain your wounded pride with your own strength. That's an admirable thought. But, next," he just shrugged. "That's not it." Then he smiled casually. "Since we're fighting so fiercely, shouldn't there be a reward?" The next word stunned them. "The loser will have to grant one wish of the winner." "How about it? If they say kneel, you must kneel. And if they say out ow and apologize, you must do it." As for Arwin, she hesitated, unable to answer right away. The other soldiers exclaimed, "Your Highness is a member of the royal family. How can you say such things? Please take back those words." And Ryan also immediately dismissed them. "Outsiders, stay out of it. Why are there so many spectators anyway?" Then he turned to ask her, "What do you think, Arwin?" Very quickly, she carefully gave her answer. "Although I am just a humble apprentice knight, I am also a member of the Knight Order loyal to the Leon Beck royal family. I dare not commit such an act of disrespect towards your Highness." Arwin's attitude quickly changed. "However, if that is what your Highness permits, then perhaps I also have the right to receive the prize of the bet." This reaction pleased Ryan very much. Good thinking. The next second, they charged at each other furiously. "Don't you go back on your word later." This time, Ryan attacked decisively, so the sound of the swords became ear-piercing. Arwin was not to be outdone, unleashing a wide area attack. Waiting for an opportunity, his eyes flashed red. Without waiting for her to compose herself, Ryan swiftly struck down. At that moment, Arwin was stunned. So fast. He wasn't this fast yesterday. And in her eyes, he now looked very crazed. Could it be that he was hiding his true strength? Gradually, the tide of the battle turned, and she was pushed back. Arwin made a small mistake, and the blade narrowly missed her. By the time there was some distance, the dueling ground was in a mess. Arwin herself couldn't keep up and was extremely flustered. In contrast, Ryan charged forward with a murderous aura. Both of them simultaneously swung their swords to attack and block. In the end, one blade was knocked away. Arwin helplessly collapsed, along with her weapon that had been cut into. Also at the training ground, many soldiers were even more astonished. Even Boo's face went blank with shock. Meanwhile, she was still stunned. "Impossible." Aniran's shadow approached Arwin. "I won the bet." At this point, he pointed his sword at her and spoke. "Arwin Kagayan, I." Aniran's lips couldn't help but curl up. Then he directly made his request. "Want you." Now Cus was confiding. "The position of royal guard for the first prince, the notorious scum of the kingdom. Contrary to my worries, the job isn't that difficult." The first time they met, Ryan had asked, "You're the new royal guard?" He had carefully bowed his head. Yes. I look forward to serving you, your Highness." In his heart, Cus silently judged, "The prince seems a bit arrogant." On the other hand, he just said coldly, "All right, I'm counting on you." As for him, he judged, he doesn't fly into a violent rage without reason like the rumors say. Through each day of training, Cus observed attentively. The more he watched, the more he pondered. No. In fact, it's the complete opposite of the rumors. On that fateful day, Ryan was still swinging his sword as the sun gave way to rain. At this point, the others began to worry. "The rain is too heavy. Should we stop His Highness?" Cus himself hurriedly exclaimed, "Your Highness, be careful." As soon as the words left his lips, a bolt of lightning struck down from the sky. However, Ryan looked extremely satisfied. Witnessing that emotion, he was utterly stunned. In his heart, Cus unconsciously affirmed, "I have a feeling His Highness will become a great man." Gradually, the stream of reminiscence returned to the present. "That's what I used to think." Ryan now declared, "I want you." At first, the soldiers were all dumbfounded. How shameful. On this side, Cus began to have doubts. Did I misjudge him? As for Arwin, she stood up bit by bit. "Is it?" She questioned him in an angry tone. "Is that truly what your Highness desires?" Ryan replied nonchalantly, "Of course. In your current state, you're just a mediocre apprentice knight, unable to even defeat his comeback prince." At this point, he smirked again. "So what I want is," Ryan said without a moment's hesitation, "the potential and future of the knight named Arwin Kagayan." In addition, he also seriously affirmed, "I need a knight to follow me, not a knight to protect me by royal decree." Cus was startled upon hearing this, and he continued to explain, "But a knight who belongs only to me. And from what I see." Ryan looked back at the information panel and commented, "You have quite the talent for swordsmanship." His tone became more and more sincere. "Therefore, Arwin Kagayan." Ryan repeated his offer. "Become my knight." In response, she suddenly recalled the past. I became the knight I had always dreamed of. But the whispers suddenly passed by her ears. Is that the child? They all had the same thought. Just as the rumors say. She has a very striking appearance. And this made Darwin angry. No one sees me as a knight. So I worked twice as hard as everyone else. In every single battle. She easily defeated her opponent. Immediately after was the familiar announcement. The winner is Arwin Kagayan. Even so, Arwin didn't stop. Even after defeating all the other apprentice members, she continued to swing her sword, completely overwhelming her target. Then Arwin kept repeating that cycle and showing such results. In the end, everyone judged. Isn't Miss Arwin our public face? Protecting a beauty like Miss Arwin is a knight's honor. Hearing this, she herself gradually gave up. I couldn't become a knight. Returning to the present, Arwin's body trembled. But she looked straight at Anrian in disbelief. He wants my potential and future as a knight. Out of suspicion, she asked herself, is he being sincere? But very quickly, Arwin spoke up. Please promise me one thing. She requested slowly. Please treat me not as a woman, but as a knight. In addition, Arwin was also a little cautious. If you can do that, I will do as your highness wishes. After speaking, Anrian just silently met her gaze. She didn't shy away, waiting for his response. And finally, he quickly nodded. All right, I promise. Receiving the answer, Arwin took a small step back. And under the sunset, she directly knelt before Anrian. At the same time, Arwin made an oath. I, Arwin, eldest daughter of the Kagayan family, swear loyalty to Prince Anrian Leonbeck. In front of everyone, she continued, and dedicate my sword and the rest of my life to your highness. Boo heard everything but remained silent. On the other hand, Anrian immediately drew his sword. As the rightful heir of Leonbeck, in the name of Anrian Leonbeck, I bestow upon you the title of knight. Arwin bowed her head to receive his instructions. Be brave, be courteous, along with the fiery red sky. He emphasized the final words. And be loyal. As time passed, Arwin returned to her diligent training. Some other soldiers began to gossip. Swearing loyalty to that's come back. Isn't that ridiculous? And it was an oath based on a bet. We have to cancel it somehow. The other person just shrugged. But I heard she refused our help. Next, the information suddenly became even more twisted. Goodness. From what I hear, doesn't something smell fishy? Could there be some kind of relationship with the prince? Maybe he can openly take her as a mistress for fear of his reputation. So, he used the knight's oath as a cover. It was strange from the beginning. Why would she go to a shady match organized by that scumbag? When the news reached Anrian, he shouted, I'm going crazy. Am I some kind of villain? He even trembled with anger. I'm truly the worst scumbag in the world. Aren't I? Cuss, beside him, just watched quietly. Suddenly, he called out in a low voice. Your Highness. Cuss immediately got to the point. About what you said that day. But he didn't understand right away. When? Seeing this, he reminded him. A few days ago, on the day of the final duel, Anrian then remembered. Not a knight to protect me by royal decree. Oh that? He quickly explained. Did that bother you? It's the truth. If there was a royal decree now telling you to go somewhere else, wouldn't you go? Then Anrian began to tease. If you want, you can also take the oath later. Cuss. On the other hand, he hesitated to suggest. If I said I would take the oath, would you accept? However, he immediately shook his head. No. At the same time, Anrian was also frank. I don't want you. There's no fun in raising you. Cuss. He laughed happily at that. Is that so? In contrast, Anrian was thinking to himself. I'm not kidding. I'm serious. A while later, in his hand was a notification letter. What did I do? Anrian himself was bewildered. I can't believe they lifted the house arrest a month and a half early. In his mind, he faintly remembered that angry expression. After acting like that, they'll lock me in the first prince's palace and never see me again. Thinking it over, he shook his head. I don't understand what that man is thinking anymore. Meanwhile, Cuss was curious. Are you not happy that the house arrest is over? Anrian answered nonchalantly. I don't really care. Even if I leave the palace, I have nowhere to go and no one to see, since I don't know anyone. As for Adelia, she was suddenly startled by shock. Then she awkwardly reported. I'm sorry. I just saw an invitation addressed to your highness. Adelia's attitude made him quite wary. An invitation? At this moment, she quickly handed him the letter. Yes, this is it. And Ren immediately took it and read it over. A social club for special young nobles. Adelia spoke up to explain. It's a social gathering that you're used to be a member of. This time, he showed his surprise. Me? Next, he wondered. Is it a strange place? At this question, she was quite flustered. Well, Adelia hesitantly recounted. For a woman like myself, the elegant hobbies of young nobles are incomprehensible. In response, he decisively dismissed it. So it's a gathering for wine and women. Forget it. I'm busy enough with training. Why would I go to such a pointless gathering? Suddenly, Aniran's eyes caught something. On the other side of the letter, a person named L. I respectfully sent their regards. Then he gradually showed his concern. L. I. Immediately, he recalled the information himself. It's a name I remember. According to my uncle, they are the family that resolutely pursued the mana heart to the very end and finally declined 100 years ago. Finally, Rand made a different decision. I guess I should attend then. Adelia quickly accepted. Understood. I will prepare your clothes. As for Andrian, he thought to himself, I hope that family hasn't completely fallen from grace. After possessing the body of the scumbag first prince and starting to train and lose weight, for months had passed. The tailor exclaimed enthusiastically. Your Highness, are you satisfied with the attire? I did not miss any of your instructions. He proudly introduced every detail. The color is black. Looking at the new boots, he said, the pattern is minimalist. His appearance delighted the tailor, and the design is simple. Yet your majesty is as grand as ever. Your Highness. And Rian, while admiring himself, nodded. I've really lost a lot of weight, he quickly exclaimed. Your measurements have decreased by more than half. At this point, he casually said, I'll entrust the attire for the royal palace banquet to you as well. Hearing this, the tailor's eyes immediately lit up. Then I will start working on it right away. However, Rian just smiled. No, wait a little longer. By then, my measurements will have changed again. Then he set off for the party. A few days after the house arrest was lifted, I'm on my way to that damn social club for special young masters. Cus continued to serve as a knight and was in charge of protecting him. In the carriage, and Rian unconsciously yawned. Being a prince is such a tiring position. His mood was no better. Clothes, carriage, guards, everything is suffocatingly annoying. Suddenly, Aniran's attention shifted to something else. Opposite him, Adelia was startled with fear at being singled out. You. He then looked at her neck and asked, What's that scar? Upon hearing this, she quickly admitted her fault. It is due to my incompetence. Your Highness, it was for something you rightly scolded me for. On the other hand, Rian was starting to regret it. Again, why is it that the more I dig into this body's past, the more horrifying stories I find? Seeing Adelia trembling, he suddenly grew curious. Come to think of it, I've seen that maid for months and I don't even know her name. Then Rian took the initiative to speak. You. What's your name? Adelia accordingly answered. I am Adelia Bayan. Your Highness. His expression immediately turned to one of astonishment. Bayan. Meanwhile, she just said in a small voice. It's a family that barely has a name on the list of nobility. But Andrian thought very differently. I never expected to hear this family name. That name again in a place like this. Amidst his countless memories. In the distant past, when even city-states didn't exist, let alone kingdoms. Among the countless races on the continent, it was an era where the weak human race was plundered and killed as a matter of course. There were those who put an end to the history of that miserable race. At the end of the Great War, to the saviors who helped humanity rise to become the dominant race of the continent, people bestowed upon them the title of the 5 great elector princes. Amidst the glorious moment, a red cloak fluttered. One of those 5 heroes. Agnes simultaneously smiled at him. Gru John. Taking him in her hand, she asked nonchalantly, Have you ever thought about it? Before them, countless monsters were swarming. About what you and I will do after this war is over. However, Agnes's gaze did not waver in the slightest. In the blink of an eye, she vanished with incredible speed. Agnes charged straight for the leader, directly confronting it. And then she performed the miracle. The one who beheaded Ida, king of the giants, and ended the long era of exploitation. Agnes even tore it to shreds with precise sword strokes. Along with that memory, he once again called her name. Was the iron-blooded sword elector, Agnes Bayan. In response, growls suddenly erupted around Agnes. Soon, Thedans had surrounded her. Riffraff like this. The radiant yellow maw sharpened her gaze. Next, she continuously cursed them, crawling back thinking there's something to eat. You bastards. You only think about things. With hatred, she cut down another one. With bodies like, morons like, you guys. Even so. Her tone became harsher. You only choose to do things that lowlifes do. You should be. So that. At that time, Gru John was so scared he broke into a sweat. Back in the present, he quickly covered his ears. Just thinking about it art eyes my ears. Gradually, Rian looked up. Anyway, the descendants of that Bayan. He stared intently at Adelia and wondered, what on earth happened for them to end up in the sea? Just then, Cuz announced to him. Your Highness, we have arrived. As usual. He opened the door and waited right beside it. Your Highness. And Ryan sighed and stepped out. Just in time. After taking a few steps, he suddenly stopped. Without a moment's hesitation, he pointed at Adelia. Adelia. We'll talk later. Just like that. And Ryan left the people behind in a state of confusion. On the other hand, as soon as he arrived, Bernardo welcomed him. Your Highness. In addition, he bowed respectfully. Have you been well all this time? Bernardo of the L.I. family greets the first prince, and Ryan Leon Beck. Afterwards, Bernardo smiled brightly. I cannot express my joy at seeing you safe and sound. He, on this side, was skeptical. This guy is a descendant of the L.I. family? He looks like an idiot. But very quickly, and Ryan was astonished. You must have suffered a lot to have lost so much weight. With a certain thought, he snorted coldly in his heart. In return, Bernardo was quite flustered. Your Highness, is something wrong? Are you still feeling unwell? And Ryan immediately denied it. No, it's nothing. I was just thinking that it's a good thing I came here. Next, he clapped his opponent on the shoulder. Thanks to you. Today it will be very interesting. With those words, and Ryan turned away in a very good mood. Soon enough, some unpleasant words reached his ears. And then that girl lifted her skirt high, as if she had no shame. Right next to them, a guy was misbehaving. That girl has really smooth skin. The young lady said shyly. Oh, don't tease me. I hate it. Amidst that atmosphere, only the two of them sat quietly in one spot. Bernardo now found it strange. Strange. Normally, this scumbag would be dead drunk and flirting all over the place by now. He carefully assessed him. His aura feels completely different from before. As he finished his thought, a guy next to him suddenly stood up. Being drunk. He spoke nonchalantly. I heard, Your Highness. His tone was somewhat sarcastic. That you plucked the flower of the Iron Lions. The rumor is spreading everywhere. In return, and Ryan just glanced over coldly. Meanwhile, a few others quickly chimed in. I was a step too slow. I've had my eye on that woman for quite some time too. If I had known this would happen, I would have taken her oath first. He then laughed perversely. Just seeing her in armor is beautiful enough. I wonder how amazing the body underneath that armor is. Just then, he suddenly asked, Hey, do you have any siblings at home? The guy was immediately stunned. Sir? Then he answered as usual. Have you forgotten? I have a younger brother. Hearing this, he laughed. What a relief. And before his opponent could understand, a fist suddenly flew towards him. What? And Ryan ruthlessly punched him, leaving him stunned. The unlucky guy immediately fell backward, his cheeks welling up and turning red. The glass on the table shattered because of it, soaking the floor. Now, all the nobles' faces turned pale. Even Bernardo was frozen with shock. As for Andrian, he continued cheerfully, relieved that your family line won't be wiped out. Immediately after, he kicked him straight in the groin. Just like that, a blood-clear scream echoed throughout the room. And Ryan then directly declared, From now on, your younger brother will be the heir. Not stopping there, and Ryan continued to throw punches. This time, he also aimed for the face to beat him. Witnessing this, the onlookers were completely frozen. As for Bernardo, his shock turned to terror, and Ryan, on this side, grabbed his shirt and pulled him back. Before he could get hit again, he quickly exclaimed, Woche, why are you doing this? Your Highness? At this question, he slowly said, Listen carefully. Aniran's eyes widened to intimidate him. I can't tolerate you thinking I'm a scumbag. But I cannot tolerate you treating me like a scumbag. The others were confused upon hearing this. What is he talking about? On the other hand, he began to vent his anger. Which means you need to be beaten a little more. This blow made him slide a long way across the floor. The atmosphere immediately became tense because everyone was scared. When Ryan approached, the other noble was already unconscious. Seeing this, he called out, He quickly knelt down. Yes, Your Highness. With a look of satisfaction, he joked with Bernardo. Didn't I say it earlier? Today looks like it's going to be very interesting. This scene made him tremble with fear. Why is this madman suddenly acting like this? Now he suddenly requested, Go call the royal knights here. As soon as he heard, he immediately rushed off. I will obey your command. While Bernardo was leaving, the room returned to its tense state, and Ryan glanced around and stopped at one spot. He immediately gave an order. You girls over there, leave this place. At the same time, there was a guy who was wary of him. Thinking he didn't know, he started to back away. However, and Ryan noticed right away. I said the girls. At the same time, he didn't forget to threaten. If you want to leave, feel free. But if you do, you'll be leaving as women. Remembering his earlier action, they quickly stood still. Seeing that everyone was being obedient, Arwin slowly strode forward. His tone was as gentle as a story. None of you bothered to kneel properly before a prince, nor did you show any respect. He reminded them bit by bit. You mocked me right to my face. Reaching this point, he glared at them and insulted my knight. Even so, Arwin intentionally asked, in this case, what crime can be charged? The knight Bernardo had called answered immediately. Because they have to stay in the royal family. It constitutes the crime of lèse majesté. The faces of several nobles immediately turned pale. And Cos continued to explain. And furthermore, because they have challenged the authority of the royal family. This is also akin to the crime of treason. Then he stood formally beside Arwin. Please give the order. Your Highness, which one of them shall we make kneel? At this question, his lips curved into an amused smile. Very quickly, Arwin gave the answer, all of them. After that party, the emperor directly questioned him. You've caused a huge incident right after your house arrest was lifted. He immediately recounted everything. 14 children of nobles were arrested for lèse majesté and treason. You've pinned every major crime you could think of on them. Finally, he asked in a low voice, do you realize what you've done? At this moment, the emperor was very angry. Because you have used the authority of the royal family. They must be severely punished. But with 14 families involved, we can't just ignore the fierce opposition. As if understanding the matter, he said nonchalantly, Father, are you worried about the opposition? Then Arwin casually explained, they are the ones who are cast aside even within their own families. They are already mabum trash who only tarnish their family's reputation if kept. Next, he proposed a solution. Send letters. The emperor was puzzled upon hearing this. Letters? To whom? He didn't beat around the bush. Father, you're asking when you already know. Aren't there people who can handle the gossip within each family better than anyone else? Arwin smiled as if it were obvious. The siblings of those arrested scumbags. With that, he intentionally probed the emperor. Am I wrong? In the end, he had no choice but to order. Leave. This made him extremely pleased. As you command. See? There's nothing to say. Right? When he returned, Arwin tried to appear harmless. Now, you don't have to be so tense. I won't harm you. Adelia, on this side, immediately trembled with fear. Your Highness, what has this lowly servant done wrong? This reaction unconsciously startled him. This scumbag must have tormented her quite a lot. Arwin himself remembered his earlier words. It's a family that struggles just to have a name on the list of nobility. He quickly came to a conclusion. Even the direct descendants know nothing about the Bayan family. Their glorious history has been erased, and their unparalleled skills have been lost. Thinking this, Arwin felt a bit resentful. Their resounding fame, their lofty pride. At this moment, he was using judgment to examine Adelia. All of it has vanished without a trace. And yet, however, the next second, he was startled. Wait, hold on. Before Arwin's eyes, he clearly saw the power slayer. Berserker. What's with all these traits? Agnes's crazed appearance immediately flashed by. And at the same time, in contrast to it, Adelia only had the trait fragile heart. Arwin was now gaping in utter astonishment. She possesses invincible talent but lacks any traits to control her madness. Then he looked at her with concern. Is it really okay for me to unleash that madness upon a world? With that thought, he proactively distanced himself from Adelia. Arwin himself quickly made a decision. I have to try. After all, it's an S-rank talent. And there happens to be a trait I can exploit. The skill he wanted to use was called servitude. A trait that brings extreme happiness from the existence of the master one devotedly serves. Therefore, Arwin immediately exclaimed, Adelia Bayan, swear your loyalty to me. In response, she was very surprised. Sir? What do you mean by that? However, he still asserted, I told you to become my knight. Right here. Right now. As expected, she quickly knelt down. Your Highness, that is not a task that this lowly servant can undertake. Then he began to set conditions. You said your family is obscure. I will take responsibility for your family. Arwin's tone became serious. In return, you must swear loyalty to me and serve me as your master. After speaking, he immediately observed her expression. If you can't control your madness yourself, I will hold the reins for you. As for Adelia, she asked awkwardly, will you really take responsibility for my family? He quickly answered, yes. Then, Arwin affirmed, if you wish, I will summon them to the capital so you can see them anytime. And this time, she looked very happy. I will do as you say. Then Adelia quickly bowed her head. Adelia, eldest daughter of the Bayan family, swears loyalty to His Highness. First Prince Andrian Leonbeck. On this side, he silently looked at her. I will serve you as my master, and dedicate my entire life to you. After she finished her oath, he reached out his hand. Good. Arwin directly declared. From now on, You will obey my orders unconditionally. She immediately responded. As you command. At that moment, Adelia gradually revealed a strange excitement. That reaction made him quite flustered. Was this the right choice? From the day he took Adelia as his personal handmaiden, the rumors about Imran spread farther and farther. I heard, speaking of the first prince, who has been quite quiet lately. He started his thuggish ways again, not only using despicable tricks to force a knight to swear loyalty, but he also summoned the children of nobles, beat them, and threw them in jail. Now I hear he's even knighted a maid who's never held a sword as his personal knight. It's obvious he wants to build a harem under the guise of personal knights. His face darkened, and he couldn't help but ask himself a question. Why is everyone suddenly so interested in me? And Rian Lianbeck had a myriad of unanswered questions. I only took on one personal knight. Yet since I woke up, everyone has something to say. For instance, his dear old father, Emperor Lianbeck. I'm having a headache dealing with the mess you caused. And yet you're here indulging in women? Following that, he couldn't miss the familiar bite marks. The scar-faced Ibu said. How pathetic. Have you given up on that bet? Even the young Julian Lianbeck took the opportunity to mock him over this. Knighting a maid. How typical of you. Brother. With these words swirling in his head, he looked helpless. I don't know how rumors spread so fast. Just then, a female servant entered and announced. Your Highness. The queen has arrived. And Ran Lianbeck shot up in protest. Looking fed up. Oh. Come on. A month later, Queen Lianbeck appeared with a disappointed voice. I thought you had turned over a new leaf. It seems you're planning to go back to your old ways. She said in a low voice, as if she had something difficult to say. Actually, that's for the best. The next words made Queen Lianbeck's face contort even more. Once you've chosen a wife and settled down, you'll surely stop this wandering. Suddenly, Queen Lianbeck's brow furrowed tightly as she declared. Trust your mother. This time, I will definitely find you a worthy wife. As soon as she finished, she gave Rian no chance to reply, and turned to leave. I don't know what to say anymore. A month later, he summoned Adelia Bayan to his room. So, I will also have mana? And Ran Lianbeck smiled and nodded. That's right. A very special kind of mana. No sooner said than done. A sea blue magic appeared in the palm of his hand. As soon as he stimulated the energy flow within Adelia, it turned yellow. Though the world has completely forgotten the sword elector, I have forgotten nothing. The footsteps she left behind, the sword dancing on her fingertips. The soul of the sword elector cradled Adelia in its arms. And what a true swordsman does not lack is the majestic beat of her own heart. When the mana was fully absorbed, the system displayed a notification. Adelia Bayan has sense mana. And Rian nervously waited to see the next result. He have successfully engraved mana onto Adelia Bayan. The mana has successfully taken shape in her body. At that moment, her eyes opened wide, full of light. A mana heart has been created. Adelia's cheeks flushed with astonishment. She whispered a question. Is this mana? And Rian calmly and clearly explained. What you just did is the method of forging a mana heart. From now on, practice on your own whenever you have time. After this, he was so exhausted he fell directly to the ground. Your Highness. Adelia saw this and called out in alarm. Are you alright? And Rand knelt down but was still quite lucid. I can't believe I'm in this state just from creating a mere mana heart. He tried to sit up and shook his head reassuringly. I'm just a little tired. Her eyes were fixed on Aniran's back as she asked. Why must you go to such lengths for a lowly person like me? It's difficult. Without letting Adelia ask further, he casually sent her out. It's fine. You may leave. After waiting for a long time, Adelia still hadn't left. Why are you looking at me like that? To his surprise, she bowed her head, her voice firm and resolute. I will be loyal to you for the rest of my life. Hearing these words, he was very pleased. Just don't forget that I am your master. Her eyes sparkled, and with her hands clasped together, she replied, Yes, 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 sir. With that, Enrain turned and left, a chilling thought suddenly crossing his mind. I'm afraid you will forget. His face darkened as he emphasized one word to himself. Truly. As time passed, a few days later, Cus came to see Andrian with no small amount of caution. Your Highness, regarding Ern Stan Shingen, I heard he is being held by the Royal Guard as a witness to the recent commotion. It seems no one is allowed to see him until the trial begins. This made him quite curious, and he asked, A trial? And Ren Lianbeck's face showed clear boredom. Don't tell me I have to attend this trial too. He quickly replied, The royal family doesn't have to go to trial. Hey, a smile spread across Aniran's face. Good news. He was already showing his boredom. But a trial. They're really making a mountain out of a molehill. Seeing Adelia on the other side, Enrian had something to ask. Adelia. Continue. How is your condition, sir? She was startled and paused for a second. What do you mean? Sir? He propped up his chin and questioned. Your mana heart. Has it stabilized? Adelia Bain understood upon hearing that. Yes. It has. Your Highness. As if receiving a signal. And Ryan sat up and said, Good. From today on, you will join me in training. Go change and meet me at the training ground. Seeing her hesitation, he cleared his throat to remind her and threw away the cleaning rag. You're a knight now. A moment later, Andreon was warming up at the training grounds. Just then, a familiar voice rang out. Well, what do you think you're doing? The sight of Belvin Hat's face annoyed him. Can't you see? I'm warming up. He growled. Interrupting. Not you. Belle's gaze shifted to where Adelia was running desperately. I'm talking about that girl. Understanding his meaning, Andreon became a bit more composed. Haven't you heard the rumors? Uncle? I'm training her to become a knight. This only enraged Belle further. Is the title of a knight so trivial to you? Considering the current situation, how can you be so reckless? The angrier he got, the more Andreon's blood boiled. Since when did you become so nosy? If you despise it so much, why do you keep coming here to ask? Just then, Adelia ran over from a distance. Your Highness. She collapsed to the ground, gasping for breath. 10 laps. Completed. When Belle saw Adelia look his way, he quickly turned away. She looked a little worried. Your Highness. I'm sorry. It's because of me. Andreon brushed it aside and said, Forget it. Take this. Today, I'll just teach you the basic stances. He immediately demonstrated a series of sword moves in front of Adelia Bain. First, take your stance, and swing the sword like this. After finishing the move, Andreon ordered, Now, you try. She struggled to hold the wooden sword in her hands. Like this. Suddenly, Adelia's eyes widened. A hidden sharpness was revealed. Her sword strike was skillful, and her footwork was fluid. This made a strong impression on Belvin Hat. Even Andreon was stunned. She copied it that perfectly after seeing it just once. Adelia then turned and asked timidly, Was my form correct? A sense of unease grew within him. Wait a minute. If I let my guard down, she'll surpass me in the blink of an eye. The slave mentality trait means submitting to the strong, not respecting the weak. I was already uneasy because of how that bastard prince treated her in the past. At this point, a terrible scenario flashed before Andreon's eyes if she were to surpass him now. He glanced sullenly over at Belle. His face was full of delight. I never expected her to possess such talent. He couldn't help but snap at Belle. What do you think you're doing? Andreon, filled with jealousy, warned, Don't you dare covet her. Hearing this, the corner of Belle's mouth twitched. What can you possibly offer that child? You're just a novice who's only been holding a sword for a few months. He flared his mana and emphasized. You can't control her. Those words were like a thorn piercing Andreon. He bit his lip, thinking to himself, if it were that bastard, he would have trembled and backed down immediately. But I am not him. Andreon Leon Beek's eyes blazed as he retorted. If I can't control her. His mana heart flared within his chest. He spoke with firm conviction. Then no one can. For one simple reason. Because we, have drunk the blood of the giant king, of the mad dragon, and of countless other beings. The essence of Andreon is Ron. His eyes transformed. System confirmation, a part of the soul, has manifested according to the user's will. The mana surrounding him changed. Even Belle could feel the immense pressure radiating from him. Andreon faced him, emphasizing each word. She is truly mine. Facing Belle, Andreon stressed again. She is mine. Do not look at her, and do not covet her. I truly hate it when someone takes what belongs to me. His face darkened, but he didn't reply. Unexpectedly, his eyes began to glow red with fury. Andreon Leon Beck let out a long breath. He began to feel strange inside. My sense of reality is fading. I can't feel any vitality or life. Only a sense of coldness and darkness fills me. Is this an omen? Andreon was filled with dread. At this rate, this weak body will be devoured by Rellen's soul. Just as his consciousness began to fade, something snapped him back to his senses. He directly confronted Ron. That's enough. Once and for all. Andreon would tame his own primal instincts. Belle's foot stomped down forcefully on the ground. He lectured in a deep voice. An ordinary knight can save the lives of 10 soldiers. An excellent knight can save the lives of 100 soldiers. Belvin Hat's eyes turned to the bewildered Adelia. That child could potentially save 1,000. Or even more. Soldiers. Hearing this, Andreon rubbed his chin. Is that your belief? For the greater good? The belief of the commander of the northern border. However, Andreon put on an indifferent expression and declared, I don't care. Belle's expectations were shattered. Even if she could save countless people. Suddenly, Adelia Bain spoke softly. Baron Belvin Hat. She resolutely thumped her chest and declared, My body and heart already belong to His Highness. I cannot follow your words. Baron. Her words left Belle momentarily speechless. Andreon stood aside, thinking smugly. It was worth bringing out my soul. The slave mentality compels submission to a higher ranking being. He took advantage of the moment and said, "You heard her. And uncle, isn't it true you have nothing left to teach me? The goal from the beginning was just to help me lose weight. After all, if you want to keep coming to my palace, then from now on, don't interfere in my affairs." He could only grit his teeth and concede. Understood. Even after that day, his uncle continued to visit the palace every single day to supervise Adelia. Although he couldn't do anything because he was forbidden from nagging or interfering. This gave Andre a new small pleasure. Watching his arrogant uncle so restless quite entertaining. Suddenly, Adelia's wooden sword emitted a breath of mana. Even she couldn't believe it. Both of them frowned at the sensation that had just occurred. He was astonished to realize the change. She's already learned its resonance? Andreon clapped his hands to get Adelia's attention. Good. Well done. Inwardly, he couldn't help but worry. At this rate, I might really get surpassed. Adelia happily walked over. Unexpectedly, Belle was already trembling. He stood in front of Andreon and demanded, You taught the girl the mana heart as well? His reply only infuriated Belle Van Hatmore. That's right. Is there a problem? At this point, he couldn't hold back any longer and yelled, Isn't it enough that you alone learn that cheap paltry trick? Andreon's face darkened, a warning glint in his eyes. Without any mercy, he threw a single command at Belle. Get out. However, Belle tried to say more. There was a much better path. A potential you couldn't even imagine. And you've ruined it all. Andreon walked away without looking back. Cuss. See our guest out. Cuss was a bit flustered. Your Highness. Before Andreon could say more, Belle left on his own. No need. I'll see myself out. Adelia stood between them, watching them argue because of her. She called out softly, Your Highness. Is what I learned a cheap trick? He unhappily cut her off with a growl. No. Absolutely not. Adelia, with wide, innocent eyes, continued to ask. Then why did the Baron say that? Andreon just gave a curt, indifferent reply. Because he doesn't know. The people of this era have completely forgotten what a true mana heart is. If they hadn't forgotten, they wouldn't have discarded it like an old pair of shoes. He spoke while ignoring the sight of Belle walking away. You will soon find out the true power of the mana heart. A few days later at the training grounds, a wooden sword was thrust firmly into the ground. Andreon folded his arms and glanced at it without a word. He then looked up and teased Belle Van Hat. You acted as if you'd never come back. Belle just threw out the words prove it. I will only use one mana circle. If you can push me back even half a step, I will acknowledge you. Andreon Leon Beck readily grabbed the wooden sword's hilt. What was that bet again? He made a grand boast. Granting a wish. Belle stared coldly. If you win, I will grant you one wish. No matter what it is. If you ask me to teach you my family's secret techniques, I will do it. Andreon smirked provocatively. That's not what I want. Belle casually went along with it. Fine. For now. Then, Andreon shot forward, aiming first for his uncle's neck. Let's fight. Facing this attack. Belle casually remarked, aiming for the neck right from the start. I see. The sword path is as vicious as ever. Another slash came. Belle leaned back to dodge it. Andreon grew frustrated, pursing his lips tightly. Immediately after, a dozen sword strikes were all cleanly dodged by Belle. He got so bored that he decided to switch things up, slashing with just one hand. Andreon had to use 60 to 70% of his strength just to block the blow. Seeing his chance, Belle taunted him. Is that all you've got? Humiliated, Andreon's pride flared up. But the first thing he had to do was put some distance between them. Seeing this, Belle unintentionally let his guard down. Have you given up already? Andreon stood up, gripping his sword's hilt once more. Not a chance. He knew what he was up against. He's infuriating, but I have to give credit where it's due. My uncle is strong. An old man like him is just waiting for me to draw up my mana so he can make me taste a crushing defeat once again. With my mana heart at its current level, I'll definitely lose just as he expects. Thinking this, he decided to switch to a verbal fight. Isn't it strange? Belle's face wrinkled in confusion. Andreon Leon Beck immediately began his explanation. 400 years ago, countless knights used the mana heart and achieved unimaginable feats. And yet, just because a slightly more useful technique appeared, all the skills of those great knights are now considered trash. It seems everyone thinks that the technique called the mana circle is a far more powerful method of controlling mana than the mana heart. As soon as he finished, Belle bluntly asked, What are you trying to get at? Andreon replied softly, half stating, half declaring, My thoughts are different. It's not that the mana heart is weak, but its master is. Not all mana hearts are the same. At this point, Andreon Leon Beck's eyes revealed his inherent confidence. Uncle, have you ever heard of a battle spirit song? However, To Belvin Hat, it was just meaningless chatter. This is a place for sword fighting, not for discussing such trivial matters. A slight smile formed on his lips. I thought you'd say that, uncle. Because you also call the manhua a crew technique only learned by lowly mercenaries. Bell didn't bother to hide his impatience. You talk too much. Do you need more time to catch your breath? Andreon paused for a beat, then waved it off. No need. Andreon's footwork became more fluid. The path a knight has walked becomes his feat of valor. 100 victories are my pride and my strength. The energy Andreon emitted was incredibly strange. Even Bell had to be wary. What? System confirmation transformation acknowledged. I sing the song of 100 victories before 20 trainees who dream of becoming knights. This feat, engraved upon my heart, is called an achievement, and an engraved achievement becomes a battle spirit song. A battle spirit song has been created, hasn't it? Now, something that has never happened before has occurred. Battle spirit song. Common grade. Song of combat has been created. A small, insignificant achievement that I have built over the past 6 months. The effect of the song of combat has been activated. This is the true power of the manhua, the battle spirit song. The system displayed a notification the effect of the song of combat has been activated. Facing Andreon, Bell remained firm in his belief. It doesn't matter what you do. He frowned, dismissing all of Andreon's notions. As long as you possess a manhua, you can never defeat him on a circle. Unexpectedly, Andreon Leonbeck paid him no mind and charged forward with his sword. As he closed in, Bell was slightly surprised. Suddenly, Andreon's heart twisted in pain. Indeed, the mana from the circles has the property of causing a backflow through the manhua. He gritted his teeth and endured. His face grim. He almost failed. Bell smirked, inwardly pleased. He continued to verbally assault Andreon's thoughts. You're quite good at stubbornly enduring. I see. Despite being at a disadvantage, he still smiled. However, to obtain this song, I have sparred over 100 times, and endured the mana of the circles over 1,000 times. A power forged specifically to deal with knights who use mana circles. While clashing 100 times, I endured 1,000 waves. Mana erupted from Andreon's body. It enveloped his entire body. His heart's whirling with fiery magic. This is the power of the song of combat. The tip of the wooden sword was now several times sharper. Bell, facing him, thought to himself, well, it seems this is worth a try. Andreon's speed shot forward in an instant. The two swords clashed, releasing an immense pressure. Bell remained in place, while only Andreon moved with all his might. The longer they fought, the more Andreon's strength was sustained beyond its limits. Bell now started to feel a bit exhausted. I didn't expect him to last this long. Suddenly, something touched his sword hilt. Bell decided to make his move, striking down with a single slash. Andreon was pushed back several meters. His face was grimy from the fight. He asked in a stern voice, how about? But before he could finish, Andreon cut him off. I told you so. Not all mana hearts are the same. Bell's magic circle lit up. You're truly arrogant. He unconsciously moved his foot from its original position. Then, he put his strength into a basic slash. Andreon's body couldn't take the force and was sent flying. Too much time had passed, and Belvin Hat's patience was wearing thin. I won't play around anymore. The fact that you've lasted this long is commendable. I will praise you. Andreon didn't care, just trying to get up as he thought. As expected, a common grade battle spirit song isn't enough. However, he didn't stop there. Andreon continued to speak of 400 years ago. The knights made a grave mistake. They left no enemies for future generations. Initially, everything was surely passed down intact. The sword techniques, the proper methods of training the heart, and even the glorious battle spirit songs. But time has gnawed away at those brilliant achievements, and eventually caused them to be forgotten. Stories of dragons never before seen, and giant kings never before heard of. They must have become nothing more than absurd legends. Of course, new battle spirit songs were created, but at best, they were only about victories against 10 knights. At best, they were feats of defeating 100 soldiers. At best, they were songs built on facing other humans, with levels that could never become myths or legends. They couldn't withstand the new wind. Andreon's eyes were unblinking. Mana circles. With such cheap techniques, you can never reach transcendence. After hearing this, Belvin Hat questioned him. Are you drinking in the middle of the day? I haven't understood a single thing you've been saying. In his eyes, he was just an old-fashioned man. Belvin Hat, the arrogant and foolish knight. At this moment, Andreon continued his speech. You all need to know just how great a thing you have lost. Amidst a storm of mana, he spoke his inner thoughts. If you don't know, the mana seemed a firm man-arm, enveloping Andreon Leon Beck's hand. I will teach you that which no sacred sword can cut. Dragon scales, and drinking its hot blood. This time, a new notification appeared on the system. I sing the song of the true dragon's demise. Suddenly, Andreon's heart seized with a sharp pain. Current abilities cannot withstand the song's level. A portion of the song is being omitted. 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 Finally, after the omissions, the system gave a final confirmation, singing only a single phrase of the song. 1/4 of 1/4. His eyes glowed crimson with the power of the technique in his sword. Touching dragon scales, the swords clashed, sending sparks flying. The blade forged of Bell's mana showed signs of being severed. This is. His pupils constricted as much as they could. At this rate, I'll be devoured. Finally, the energy reached its peak, and a flash of light burst through the clear sky. The resulting blast destroyed the dueling stage. Andreon was thrown far away as someone cried out, "Your Highness!" As the smoke gradually cleared, Bell's figure still stood tall. Annoyed, Andreon forced himself to get up. The sight of bells from magic circles met his eyes. He couldn't help but ask, "Didn't you say you'd only use one circle?" Belvin Hat's face was grim. Seeing this, Andreon thought to himself, "And even after using all 4 circles, you still couldn't prevent your sword from being shattered." On the other side, Andreon had sat up straight. Mana from the heart is weaker than mana from the soul. That is an undeniable truth. For now, he spoke up, his voice cold and declarative. "Baron Belvin Hat." Just 3 words were enough to completely unnerve Bell. "You have lost." At the peak of the moment, something was tormenting Andreon's heart. It coiled tightly around his soul. No. Stop. Please. Just stop. Andreon Leon Beck's face turned noticeably pale. Unconsciously, he clutched his chest and collapsed. Back in the present, the pain still tormented Andreon in his bed. His trembling hand clutched the bedsheet tightly. Sweat drenched his face. This damn battle spirit song. This is the price for forcibly drawing out the power of a battle spirit song. To cut through the dragon's scales. Because the song of the true dragon's demise is a myth-grade battle spirit song. After calming down, Andreon clenched his fist proudly. My body has been ravished by it. But it was worth the price. The first battle spirit song woven by my own hands. 100 victories are my pride and my strength. Having endured 1,000 harsh waves through 100 duels, I will stand firm before even greater waves. He smiled faintly with satisfaction. The level of the song of combat has increased a little. The thought of one thing excited Andreon. This is enough to fight that bastard. The third prince. Suddenly, Adelia's voice called out, "Your Highness." Seeing him was like a fan meeting her idol. You're finally awake. Everything was in chaos after your Highness collapsed. I've never seen the queen so angry before. Hearing this, Andreon chuckled. Serves them right. It really serves them right. Adelia carefully interrupted his joy. And Baron Belvin had also left a message. He said to inform him as soon as your Highness woke up. Andreon Leslie flopped back onto the bed. Don't report it yet. I'm going to rest a little longer. He then shooed her away with a gesture. Because Andreon was busy tending to the soul within his body. If I don't properly recover my spirit after being damaged by overusing a battle spirit song, I'll pay a terrible price. Reality and past memories will blend together into a confusing mess. And at some point, the boundary of reality will completely collapse. I'll end up as a madman, endlessly reliving the moments of the battle spirit within a fractured world. Thinking of this outcome, his face twisted. To think I could get trapped in the sword's memories again after finally becoming human. Just the thought of it makes me shudder. According to the memories of Ron, Agnes Bayan was a great swordswoman. After explaining to Adelia, he emphasized, because you are a descendant of the Bayan family, you should be able to inherit the battle spirit song she left behind. She was a bit surprised to hear this. I never knew my ancestor was such a great swordswoman. He wasn't surprised and just shrugged as he poured some water. Of course, you'll need to grow much stronger than you are now to reach a level worthy of that song. So, about that, Andreon, half testing and half suggesting, asked, what do you want to do once you learn swordsmanship? Adelia seemed to have never thought about it. That is. She avoided his gaze. If I can't really become a knight. Andreon felt helpless at her hesitation. If you become a knight, then, he didn't want to make things harder for Adelia Bayan. If you can't think of anything, we can talk about it later. But she still tried to speak her mind. I will. He paused, waiting for Adelia's next words. As if mustering all her courage, she expressed herself. Be your Highness sword. I will become your Highness's sword. This time, it was Andreon's turn to be surprised. Memories from his time as a sword flooded back. There are songs of great deeds that begin with the sound of a battle horn. And there are also songs of great deeds that begin with the first step across a field. There are also stories that begin with a heartfelt oath. Adelia's vow rang out. To live for your Highness for my entire life. I will dedicate everything to your Highness. A hidden system notification appeared. Adelia Bayan offers the Song of Fealty. His mana heart suddenly lit up. This is Adelia's battle spirit song. And, sometimes, a battle spirit song also affects others. A golden light shone down on Adelia. A new battle spirit song has been created. A common grade battle spirit song, Song of Dominion, has been created. From what he knew, the Song of Fealty was a song offered to a master rather than a battle spirit song. It was more like an oath of servitude that bound souls together, even if she had the vassal mentality trait. Looking at Adelia before him, Andreon thought, I never expected the descendant of the sword matron to weave a song of fealty. I've received some unexpected help. Looking at his current abilities, Andreon smiled with satisfaction. As long as I am the target of the song of fealty, then Adelia's growth will also benefit me. Andreon smiled at her. Thank you. Adelia blushed instantly. Your Highness. In the dark room, their eyes met, although I still don't know in what way that benefit will manifest. Time passed, and it was now a few days later. Andreon's face was clearly bored. Cuss and Adelia stood in front, speechless and confused. Just then, a voice called from outside. Ian, are you feeling better? He stammered in response. I'm fine. Andreon looked warily at Queen Leon Beck outside the door. It's easier to deal with those who hate this body. But dealing with someone who loved the original owner of this body is quite awkward. Suddenly, she asked, Do you resent your uncle? Without waiting for his answer, Queen Liam Beck explained in a deep voice. Your uncle didn't really mean to harm you. So even if there are any bad feelings left, please let them go. He replied flatly. I have no negative feelings. Unexpectedly, Queen Liam Beck became even more agitated. How could you not? He treats you harshly and nags you everywhere you go. To say you have no negative feelings is surely a lie. Andreon tried to explain helplessly. No, I really don't. He tiredly scratched his face, waiting for her reaction. Recalling that day, he told himself, I already dealt him a blow that day, as all his pride and principles were denied. He must be having a very hard time enduring it. The inner demon I planted in him that day. If he has the strength, he will go even further. But if he can't overcome it, he will lose that precious martial courage of his. To be honest, I don't care what happens after. Queen Liam Beck smiled, recalling Gnostic Lajiki. Your uncle has spent his life more attached to his sword than to people. So he's a bit clumsy and rough. But lately, it seems he's very proud of you. He even personally convinced His Majesty. Her next words shook Andreon's detached thoughts. Thanks to him, your house arrest was lifted earlier than expected. But trouble came as soon as the house arrest was lifted, which was when Andreon had loudly declared, Arrest them all. She let out a soft sigh. Your uncle's position must also be very difficult. At that, Andreon's face went blank for a moment. Is that why he seemed so displeased? Andreon rubbed his chin, thinking for another moment. But a big question popped into his head. Why would that man do that for me? After the day Queen Leon Beck visited, another old man appeared, the scholar Nicola Maki-Del. He smiled like a salesman. Your Highness. Andreon felt a chill and bluntly cut him off. I absolutely refuse. Cousin Adelia stood silently to the side, observing. Unexpectedly, he used his old trick, throwing himself on the ground and wailing. Really? Why do I have to study? Nicola remained composed and said, Without learning, what difference is there between a man and a beast? Hearing this, he shot up in anger. Are you calling me a beast? The old man patiently and gently advised. You have only just begun your studies, Your Highness, so I cannot yet call you a beast. Andreon roared in protest. I haven't even started. Don't play word games with me. With that, he sulked and sat on the floor. I may look like this, but I already know everything I need to know. I'm saying I don't need to learn anything more. Understand? Nicola Maki-Adal continued with his sales pitch. If you are so determined, then let's do this. You will discuss a few topics with me. If your skills are truly as you say, then I will no longer come to see you. Your Highness. The opportunity presented itself, and he immediately agreed. Sounds good. The discussion began, followed by Andreon slamming his hand on the table. Yes, exactly. That's why one must always watch their back. It's human nature to walk all over you if you show too much leniency. Nicola played along with his emotions. You are absolutely correct. Seizing the opportunity, the old man presented a book and said, I think you'll find this book very interesting. He took it and quickly flipped through a few pages. Here, it evaluates the relationship between a monarch and their subjects as a type of contract or transaction. The monarch receives military and economic support in exchange for protecting their subjects. The subjects seek the monarch's protection and political stability in exchange for their loyalty. This seemed to resonate with Andreon. The old man has a point. All relationships are inherently give and take. And so the conversation lasted until late afternoon. So, about this part. Exactly. That's right. And this part too. When they were done, Niccolo gathered his books. Well then, Your Highness. The old man smiled brightly and promised. We shall continue the rest of our discussion tomorrow. Not realizing he'd been led by the nose, Andreon even waved goodbye. Alright, I'll be waiting. Even after Niccolo left, Andreon was still quite cheerful. Suddenly, his clarity returned in a flash. Wait, did I just participate in a normal lesson? The corner of Andreon's mouth twitched. Having been led down like a bull, that old man is really cunning. Conversely, the old man also had some thoughts about him. The first prince. He's quite different from the rumors. The next day, when the sun was high in the sky, Andreon lay on his back on the bed with a completely bored expression. He rolled back and forth, complaining. So bored. He always felt an indescribable restlessness inside. Have I been living too diligently lately? Since I'm not focused on training, there's nothing to do, and my body is still recovering. Suddenly, a report came from outside the door. Your Highness, Lord Belvanhat is here to see you. He shot up with excitement. It's been a while since I had a visitor. Adelia tilted her head and asked, what should we do? Andreon, being so bored, was enthusiastic for a change. Alright, show him in. He stood with his hands on his hips, waiting for his uncle. It's been a few days since that match, so it's about time he visited. His attitude changed when he came face to face with Belle. But it seems he hasn't overcome the inner demon I planted in him at all. He let out a sigh. Then he spoke from the heart. I am very sorry. I broke my own promise and caused you to be seriously injured because of it. I have absolutely no excuse. Andreon remembered the battle the other guilty conscience. The reason I'm recuperating isn't because of Uncle Sordora, but because I overused the song of the true dragon's demise. It was even worse remembering Queen Leonbeck's words. Your uncle's situation must be difficult, considering I've caused another incident. Belle spoke in a deep voice. So, tell me what you want. If you demand my arm, I will offer it. If you demand my eye, I will offer that too. Andreon let out an ice-cold reply. What would I do with such trash? At this moment, Andreon was in a difficult position. How can a man who was once a sword saint be bound by an inner demon like this? After thinking for 5 seconds, he made a decision. Alright, I'll be generous. I will state my wish now. Uncle, let me go on a trip. He was momentarily startled. Since your house arrest is over, can't you go out whenever you want? He wagged his finger, indicating he was wrong. Not a day trip like that. Somewhere far away. If possible, outside the capital. This request from Andreon made him freeze like a statue. It took him a moment to speak. It will take some time to arrange the schedule. With the upcoming banquet, traveling far is impossible. Andreon waved his hand dismissively. That's fine. As soon as he finished, his uncle turned around. Very well. I will contact you when the schedule is set. Andreon agreed and shooed him away. Go ahead. Cuss stood beside him, watching Belle leave. Seeing that he had something to ask, Andreon asked directly. What? What is it? Why are you looking at me like that? Cuss hesitated to answer. Well, he scratched his head and smiled sheepishly. I'm just a little surprised. I thought your Highness would demand something much more unreasonable. Since the Baron broke his promise, this was a rare opportunity to profit in many ways. Cut. He couldn't explain clearly. It's just. Then he could only say one thing. Seeing that stubborn old man act like that just made me feel sorry for him. Before the goosens faded, he was met with Cuss's amused laughter. What? Why are you laughing? Cuss, you seem to have gotten quite comfortable lately. Just then, Adelia appeared. Your Highness. In her hand was a small piece of paper. The letter you were waiting for has arrived. Your Highness. On it was the seal of some place. The letter was quite brief but complete. I have recently achieved a small accomplishment. Perhaps I will be able to visit you soon. I hope you remain healthy until that day. From Arwin Kurgan. Reading the last few lines, Andreon smiled faintly. The news arrived right on time. About 5 days later, his uncle sent the good news. And 2 days after that, the day of departure arrived. The carriage procession left the city gates. Andreon was like a 5-year-old, leaning out the window. Uncle, what's the name of the domain we're visiting? Eileen? Ellen? Belvanhat's eyebrows knitted in warning. Can't use it still? But seeing him so excited, he retracted his words. I will explain. So please come inside. The story began in a time long past. The barony of Ellen. It is the largest weapons workshop of the royal family. There are iron mines in the domain that provide high-quality iron ore, and a guild of talented blacksmiths to refine it. It's no exaggeration to say that more than half of the weapons supplied to the royal family come from Ellen. Andreon Leonbeck's eyes lit up. Perfect. He excitedly considered the new possibilities in his head. My strength has improved a lot, so it's time to find a sword for myself. Initially, I was just going to grab a decent sword from the royal armory. But then the keepers told me, forgive us, Your Highness, but due to a royal decree, we cannot issue any weapons to you. Your Highness, Because of the powerful words uttered by Emperor Leon Beck. Know that you will be severely punished if you let that brat touch a sword again. Andreon was startled by the memory of the original owner being impaled by Ron due to his mischief. The more he thought, the more helpless he felt. Considering this guy's notorious record, it's only natural. But, anyway, that means if I want a decent weapon, I have to find it outside the royal palace. Andreon paused, glancing furtively at Belle. A thought crossed his mind. He's surprisingly thoughtful for someone with his appearance. Belle reminded him. It's too noisy. Close the window. He shouted in protest. What? No way. And so, the 20-day journey had just begun. Forced to sit still in the carriage, Andreon decided to stabilize the magic power within him. It's about time I refilled it. Using the sway of the carriage, a cool breeze passed by. The voices of the knights echoed from outside, gathering the tiny mana motes hidden in the space. If I fill this empty mana heart. Slowly, the mana pulses gathered inside his heart. Suddenly, Andreon Leon Beck sensed a small conflict. Huh? He was surprised even in his subconscious. When did my mana heart become this large? A new notification appeared on the system. You have attempted to perform an extraordinary feat beyond your capabilities. And you have witnessed a part of that immense will. After reading this line, he thought to himself, this must be the effect of forcibly using the song of the true dragon's demise. Suddenly, a light emanated from Andreon's chest. That effort has been reflected in your body. Your mana heart has expanded. Thanks to the expanded mana heart, your physique has changed significantly. Your body can now withstand even more mana. You have reached the level of a sword master. Your connection to the source has improved slightly. Some restrictions on your restored powers have been lifted. The power of clairvoyance has been significantly improved. The power of clairaudience has been significantly improved. From Adelia's perspective, she only saw him behaving strangely. Your Highness? Unexpectedly. He didn't care and just flailed his arms and legs. After finishing his martial arts display, Andreon clenched his fist in excitement. I've taken another step forward. The group of people and horses had reached their first destination, the county of Elend. As soon as Andreon stepped down, someone came to greet him. I cannot express the honor of meeting you in this way. Your Highness. The two men in front of him bowed respectfully. Ijui of the Elend family greets you. Torrance, the eldest son of the Elend family, greets the first prince. Your Highness. He led the procession, replying politely, thank you for the reception. Hiju smiled politely and said, you must be tired from the long journey. I will lead you to your rooms first. Andreon didn't answer right away, his worry showing as he looked around. Andreon Leon Beck made a few observations in his mind. They say this is a weapons manufacturing site, and as expected, the entire mansion is filled with all sorts of weaponry. However, they are all low-grade items. All show and no use in actual combat. As he walked in with E.G., he was still looking from side to side. Andreon looked a bit annoyed. Looking at this, it seems difficult to find what I need here. Unable to hold back any longer, he asked directly. You said the blacksmith guild is in this domain, right? The man heard and replied conveniently. Yes, that is correct, that is correct. But, taking the opportunity, Andreon directly suggested, I want to go there and take a look. A moment later, someone's footsteps became more hurried. Ija had already taken him somewhere. The nature of blacksmiths is that they are all rude and conservative. When their work reaches a climax, they often ignore even the Lord when he visits. And the words they utter are as cold and rough as the iron blocks they are handling. Therefore, even if you feel offended, please consider it the spirit of an artisan and forgive them graciously. It seemed Andreon Leon Beck didn't hear a word. All he saw now was fire and the sound of hammers ringing out. Stepping inside, Thija acted as the host and introduced. The heat from the forge is immense. If you feel uncomfortable, please, let me know. Your Highness. Andreon was still overwhelmed. The sound of hammers striking iron echoed throughout the space. Seeing him about to do something, the man was a bit confused. Your Highness? As he moved step by step into the forge, Andreon seemed to blend in with it. The fire roared, the bellows puffed, and the blacksmiths were swinging their hammers onto the iron blocks. The heat unintentionally made him sweat profusely. However, among them, what he was interested in gradually came into view. There was a strangely clear sound. Andreon stopped in front of a diligently working blacksmith. The man was old, but his enthusiasm and the force of his strikes did not wane. The scene before him was captured in his eyes. The image of Ra'an appeared in his mind. This is it, the first memory I clearly remember. Suddenly, a handkerchief was used by someone to wipe the sweat from his brow. Andreon looked over and saw Adelia Bayen. Your Highness, you're sweating too much. Only then did he realize it. Then he turned away, refusing her concern. He continued to watch the old man forging the sword. The head blacksmith gathered the workers to meet Andreon. These humble ones greet the first prince. Your Highness. Thijua continued. This man's name is Jackson. He is the one running the guild at this time. He didn't seem to care. I see. However, Andreon was only focused on the old man hammering the sword. Thinking he was displeased, Jackson angrily shouted, You, what are you doing? Stop what you're doing, and bow to His Highness. Unexpectedly, this angered Andreon. You're too loud. His eyes showed clear annoyance. The group of blacksmiths fell silent, not daring to say anything. The red-hot sword also smelled of smoke. He turned his head and looked around. It was clear they were forced to come here while working. He thought for a moment, and then reminded them. Doing things I didn't even command. The iron will cool. Unless you also want the fire in the forge to go out. Just keep standing there. As soon as he finished, the group of blacksmiths quickly dispersed. What are you doing? Hurry up and grab your tools. Pump the bellows. They left, leaving Andreon standing there observing. The space around him seemed to freeze. The man in front of him still hadn't stopped. The old man's hammer strikes were steady, not missing a beat. Andreon had no intention of disturbing him, just observing his every move. In his eyes, the light from the sword was imprinted. It was as if fire surrounded everything. The sword blade naturally glowed brightly. His gaze was focused solely on the man. The more he sweated, the faster he breathed. Andreon wondered, just what is this feeling? The tour of the workshop ended, and DJ saw Andreon outside. For whatever reason, he has been repeating the process of forging swords and then melting them down for the past 6 months. Hearing this, he became a little curious. Are they defective products? The man shook his head sadly. It's hard to say. The story was slowly recounted by Xie. The swords he makes are all considered masterpieces, which is why he is called the master swordsmith. Even the swords he has made so far, to me, absolutely perfect. It's truly a mystery why he melts them all down. The more he spoke, the more his confusion and regret became apparent. Moreover, for the past month, he has barely slept and has only buried himself in his work. Since he's no longer young, we can't help but worry. Andreon said no more, just took a step towards the mansion. A true artisan. Many days had passed since then. His Highness would go to the forge early every morning and only leave late at night. During that time, the old man simply continued his daily work, and His Highness just quietly observed him. Contrary to the tension from the rumor that the first prince was coming, it was surprising that no incidents occurred. On a night with a crescent moon on the roof of the mansion, Andreon had gone to the forge as usual, and finally, the day His Highness had to leave arrived. He seemed to want to say something but held back. The other man, as usual, paid him no mind. When he thought he had reached his limit, Andreon sighed. I was hoping to see it finish before I left. Iju was speechless at his anticipation. He thought to himself, he feels very regretful. With that, Andreon turned and called out, Let's go. I heard there's a farewell party tonight, and we have to depart early tomorrow morning. Kotis silently watched his back as he disappeared. Perhaps that's why he hoped His Highness could see the sword completed by the master swordsmith, if only for a moment. The next morning, when the sun was just rising, Your Highness, Andreon appeared with a peculiar look. From afar, Thiju ran up to announce, It seems the master swordsmith has finished the sword. Hearing this, the next person to run off was Andreon. His eyes fell upon the old man with the sword in his hand. The old man was intently polishing the entire sword blade. It was finally finished, sparkling under the sun. Hey! Unexpectedly, the man, without a word, knelt at Andreon's feet and offered the sword. The sword blade reflected his eyes. I offer this sword. The old man slowly spoke each word clearly for His Highness. This was something even Ija had never imagined. Frigid like the sun rising on the horizon, and cool lit until its sharpness matches the king's heart. If you do so, a sword like the sun and a king will be born. From the blacksmith's song, holding the sword in his hand, Andreon asked, Does it have a name? The old man bowed his head respectfully. How about calling it Twilight? He asked curiously. Is that the twilight of dawn or the twilight of dusk? The old man slowly replied. To me, it is dusk. But to Your Highness, it must be dawn. After hearing this, Andreon laughed out loud. You're quite eloquent for a blacksmith. Suddenly, the old man's tone deepened, and he let out a long sigh. That, he collapsed to the ground as he spoke. What a relief. Before anything else could happen, the man had fainted. Cus whispered in his ear. Your Highness. He supported the old man and gave an instruction. Tell my uncle I think I'll be staying here tonight. That night, the 10 torches were lit. Alone, Andreon sat inside, taking care of the man. The old man seemed to have regained some consciousness. The moment Your Highness stood behind me that day, the sword took shape as if destined. The sword itself decided the day it would be born. He crossed his arms, a slight smile on his lips. Is that what you think? Andreon's face darkened as if he wanted to say something. The truth is, he then leaned over and whispered into the man's ear. The old man was startled upon hearing it. 3 seconds later, He shouted out. My goodness. Then you are. Andreon understood and quickly nodded in confirmation. Yes? So how could I not understand this man's heart? Once he understood everything. The man on the bed burst out laughing. The old man spoke with satisfaction. I see. Now I understand. Your Highness. Please let me borrow that sword for a moment. He quickly handed the hilt to the man. Here you go. The old man's trembling hand took back the sword. Once more. Sweat dripped down his face. I pray that this sword will become as great as you are. Hearing this, his heart seemed to skip a beat. Andreon grasped the man's hand firmly. It certainly will be. And then, what was meant to happen? Happened. It seemed the man had reached the end of his road. He had sacrificed himself to create the greatest sword. That night, Andreon seemed to make a promise to himself. Certainly. The next day, another sword was packed in a box. He cheerfully brought it to present to Andreon. Although one cannot simply discuss the value of a sword created with the soul. But I believe it will be inconvenient for your Highness to use. I happen to have this magic sword that I wish to offer your Highness. Please accept this instead. Andreon accepted it with a charitable smile. It's very good. In his heart, he calculated, though not high-end, it's a good mid-grade sword. The man, seeing his interest, was quite pleased. Your Highness. So, about that sword. Andreon casually slung the sword at his hip and replied. Just being created by a renowned master with all his heart is already an extremely great gift. And yet, you were going to offer a magic sword on top of that. As expected, the loyalty of the Allen family to the royal family is truly devoted. Hiju was stunned by his words. That, he could only bow his head and say. It is an honor for my family. Thijai screamed, pulling at his hair. I was going to use that flashy magic sword as bait to get back the master swordsmith's sword. But now, I've just lost a good sword for nothing. A short while later, in a forest, Bell announced to the troops. The carriages and infantry will follow slowly. The cavalry will advance at full speed. We're behind schedule. So we need to hurry. Keep up. They replied in unison. Andreon watched him with a thoughtful gaze. He blurted out. You seem busy. Uncle. Come to think of it. I didn't see you at all while we were in the domain. Bell held his head high and replied. His Majesty gave me a separate mission. He rubbed his chin, looking contemplative. I guess my trip wasn't entirely free. Huh? Bell didn't reply. Just gave a reminder. All right, get ready. We plan to move quickly to reach Lion's Heart City by tonight. So, you'll have to ride a horse. Hearing this, Andreon seemed to remember something. About that. I don't know how to ride a horse. His uncle was completely taken aback. All eyes were fixed on Andreon. I used to be a sword. How could I know how to ride a horse? Andreon had to bite the bullet and go along with it, as there was no other choice. The road to Lion's Heart City. And of course, there were a few unexpected incidents along the way. But it was unavoidable. His face had turned several shades paler. Although it wasn't half a day as originally planned. We reached our destination after about a full day. Standing before the city gates, he let out a breath. So this is Lion's Heart City. The rhythmic footsteps of the soldiers approached. The young man at the head maintained a respectful attitude. Ewan of the Walden family greets the first prince. Your Highness. The Lions of Steel greet the noble blood of Leon Beck. Their reception sent a chill down his spine. Your aura seems a bit excessive. Andreon's eyes glanced over at the soldiers accompanying him. As for Lysotha, well, it's pretty obvious, isn't it? A fiery thought sparked in his mind. How about I stir things up a bit? From a distance, a person approached. Arwin? Arwin understood immediately upon hearing her name. She knelt at Andreon's feet and reported. I have been waiting every day just to see your Highness again. As soon as she finished, dozens of fiery pairs of eyes stared at him. Oh, the reaction is quite immediate. Suddenly, Andreon Leon Beck felt a chill down his spine. He quickly turned around and met the gaze of Adelia Bayen. The hostility is directed at me. Her master's feelings might be agitating Adelia. He called out softly. Adelia. She snapped out of it in an instant. Adelia returned to her usual calm demeanor. She nodded respectfully. Yes, your Highness. Seeing this, Andreon felt a sense of relief. It's a good thing I developed her slave mentality early on. To avoid wasting time, Andreon turned to Arwin. Now then, he casually ordered. Arwin, follow me. In his heart, Andreon was plotting to stir up trouble. Don't we have a lot to talk about? It would be even better if those behind you came along too. A month later, Andreon had removed his outer coat and gone to the training grounds. Standing before Arwin's fan club, he spoke frankly. I want to witness the swordsmanship of the Lions of Steel, who are said to be the best in this kingdom. Who will show me the sword of the Lions of Steel? All eyes turned to one person. He followed their gaze. Seeing that they didn't speak up, Andreon declared firmly, if my status is pressuring you, in the name of Leon Beck, Guarantee that no one will be held accountable for the outcome of this match. Still no one. Knowing that the usual approach wouldn't work, he resorted to taunting them. I didn't expect the renowned Lions of Steel to be so cowardly. It seems the title of the kingdom's strongest is just an empty name. Hearing this, a young man with orange hair stepped forward with his sword. I am Dio of the Denon family, he firmly declared. Although I am too lacking to represent the sword of the Lions of Steel, if you would allow it, I would be so bold as to stand before your highness. He waved his hand, a slight smile on his lips. No need for permission. I was the one who made the request. As soon as he finished, Dio lunged forward. Then, please be careful. His eyes widened, revealing a sharp glint. The two swords clashed, emitting a blue light. With just one clash, Dio coughed up red. In a single move, he was sent flying, skidding a long way across the ground. Andreon's mana heart burned brightly. Next, Dio was knocked out, but the others didn't back down. Among them, another brave soul stepped up. "Pa Roth YM. Dio is just a first year. I'm a third year." Before he could finish his line, his face was also smashed in. Following that were a few more who barely tickled Andreon. "I'm Holly, a fifth-year apprentice swordsman. Zurich, eighth year. The sword of the Lions of Steel never loses." No. Only the sound of clashing echoed in the training grounds. About 15 minutes passed. The Lions of Steel troop was completely wiped out by Andreon. He wore a bored expression. "Seriously. Now, I want to face the official knights." You all move quite slowly. Andreon called out to Arwin. She stepped forward upon hearing her name. Yes, your highness." He smiled and winked. "When I return, you will come with me." Arwin paused for a beat. She then bowed her head respectfully. "As your highness wishes." Suddenly, a man from behind spoke in a grim tone. "Your highness." He smirked in satisfaction. "Too easy." The man continued. "I heard your highness is fond of wagers. How about a small bet to liven things up? If I defeat your highness." Before he could finish his sentence, Andreon cut him off. "I refuse. Arwin is not a prize in a tournament." She was deeply moved by this. "Your highness." Andreon threw his wooden sword to the ground and made a different offer. "How about we bet something else instead? Gus, bring the sword." He reached for the sword and said, If you win, you win. I will give you this sword right here." Arwin was quite surprised by his boldness. The other man was just as startled. She intentionally ran over to stop André on Leonbeck. "Your highness, I should be the one." He casually cut Arwin off. "You are 100 times, 1,000 times more precious than this sword." The reason was that he always believed in his heart, because the value of a swordsman cannot be compared to a common sword. The man excitedly nodded. "Very well. Your highness." He drew his sword and announced his name. "Dunham of the Fahrenheit family. I am an official knight of the Lions of Steel Knight Order, and on the verge of reaching the third circle." He casually gave a thumbs up. "So you mean you're still only at the second circle?" The man was speechless with anger. Putting that aside, Dunham held his sword high. "This sword is the 17th work made by the artist and known as the Master Swordsmith. If you win, this sword will belong to your highness." He laughed upon hearing the familiar name. What a coincidence. Andreon quickly drew the sword that the old man had given him. Then he revealed a stunning fact. "I also happen to have a sword I received from that master." He emphasized each and every word. "It is his 100th work." Dunham was now a little hesitant. "I have never heard a rumor about that master making a 100th sword. Based on this." Andreon pushed harder. "I guess not. It's his final work. Just completed a few days ago." The man was now a little angry. "Very well. Although your highness is walking a misguided path of the sword, I can see the ceaseless efforts invested in that path." The praise only amused Andreon more. "A misguided path, you say? To show a little respect for that, I will give my all in this match." His mana heart flared up once more. How trivial. This position was never something to be called my own in the first place. The respect directed towards me is the gaze of the people I have gathered. It can only be described in one word as long as it comes from my people. That is enough. With that, Andreon spoke in a low voice. "Adelia, watch closely." She was too surprised to react in time. "Yes." "Huh?" An unprecedented amount of mana erupted from his body. Andreon Leon Beck firmly emphasized each word. "This path is the one you must walk from now on." Adelia obediently nodded. Yes. The connection between her and Andreon was completed in an instant. Adelia spoke with certainty. "I will definitely do so, your highness." In Yuan's room, steam rose from a teacup. "So?" Bell sat opposite him and asked, "How many times have we visited Lion's Heart City?" Yuan crossed his legs and replied, "This is the 4th time." He rubbed his chin, pondering something. As far as Belvin Hat could tell, the 4th prince had no interest in the throne, so he certainly wouldn't come. The 3rd and 5th princes had visited while the 1st prince was under house arrest. Even the second prince had just stopped by not long ago. Yu unplaced his teacup on the table and said, no matter how bad his reputation is, it's undeniable that the first prince is the legitimate heir to the kingdom. He angrily pointed his finger at Belvin Hat. For things to have come to this, you certainly bear great responsibility. If you, the commander of the 3rd Legion, had supported the first prince even a little, His Highness would not have become so isolated. He bowed his head and listened to all the accusations. So why are you only now acting as his guardian? Bell didn't deny what he said. You are not wrong. I did once abandon my nephew. Not only an incompetent monarch, but also a tyrant. That was my nephew. One day, when I scolded him for being drunk on some poisonous drug, Andreon angrily and insolently shouted, "Are you crazy?" His face flushed red with anger. Unable to contain the rage in his soul, he had lunged at his own uncle with a sword. To Bell at that time, there was only one thought in his mind: a useless bastard. When I returned to the north in disappointment, my nephew sent me poise and wine. He even dared to call it a gift, along with a letter. Bell angrily took the poise and wine bottle in his hand. Without a second thought, he was determined to drink it all. When I used my mana to burn away that cheap poison he got from who knows where, I also burned away the last bit of family affection along with it. However, the bastard I thought would never change is now different. He endures harsh training and is getting stronger every day. Back in reality, Yuan was still gaping and questioning. Didn't you yourself say that the first prince must absolutely not become king? Bell's teacup reflected Andreon's smile. The boy of today is a completely different person from before. Because of that thought, he decided to humble himself for once. Give him a chance, at least so he can stand on the same starting line as the other princes. Not only that, but Bell also bowed his head before Yuan. I beg you. The man was almost 70 and had never seen such a sight. I really can't understand. I don't know if you or the first prince has changed. First, please raise your head. I'm known as the Silver Lion. Before he could finish his sentence, a soldier burst through the door. Lord Weil Odin. The two men frowned, looking quite surprised. The first princes. After receiving the news, Yuan and Bell headed to the training grounds. No need to worry too much. Dunham knows when to stop, so nothing serious will happen. Throughout the walk, he continuously reassured him. Even in a real sword fight, he certainly wouldn't beat a royal to the point of unconsciousness. After hearing this, Bell spoke sternly. The one you should be worried about right now is not the prince, but your knight. The man, on the other hand, was rather incredulous. You've really become strange. Your face is pale, and you're saying absurd things. Before he could finish his words, a familiar figure was thrown down at their feet. Yuan immediately recognized the man on the ground. Dunham. Now the entire training ground was in an uncontrollable uproar. Even Dunham has been defeated. His Highness won again. Yuan's face went blank for a long time. What is this? Bell was both a little awkward and proud. I told you so. Andreon wiped away the dry blood from the corner of his mouth. In his eyes, Andreon was very different from before. He is not the one you need to worry about. He was fired up and called out loudly. Next, his uncle always said that a true knight only begins at the second circle. That was why Andreon gave his all to fight Dunham. Throughout the battle, Andreon Leon Beck experienced it for himself. Those words were no exaggeration. He also realized something. The current song of combat is not enough. But I can't just use the song of the true dragon's demise on a regular knight. In that case, system confirmation activating super focused talent. Andreon's mana heart pounded in his chest. He visualized the blurry steps clearly. Everything became still. His body no longer felt like his own. Andreon's eyes blazed with the blue light. That's the feeling. Just like that time. The moment Dunham's sword was about to connect was replayed in his eyes. And it flowed. The clash sent sparks flying. As a result, Dunham was sent flying meters away. He was exhausted, but he was superior. As another person fell, Andreon's voice rang out again. Next, it was still the same precise, powerful slashes. A sharp sword path and a confident half-smile. Andreon didn't hesitate to take down his opponents in just a few short moves. As time passed, his strength showed no signs of diminishing. Andreon even used the opportunity to hone his own skills. One by one, they were cut down like falling reeds. Andreon didn't spare a single one, fighting them all. The more he fought, the more ferocious he became. Sweat dripped down, soaking the grass. Alone, Andreon had cleared out the lion's troop by dusk. He panted to catch his breath. Unexpectedly, the soldiers cheered loudly. Patton has been defeated. That's His Highness's 5th consecutive victory. Having endured 1,000 harsh waves through 100 duels, I will stand firm even before a greater wave. System confirmation maneuvers has been added to the Song of Combat. Only now do I rise with sword in hand. System begins upgrade. The rank of Song of Combat has become uncommon. Song of Combat changes to match its rank. Song of Combat has become Song of Dueling. His mana heart returned to a stable state. I did it. Now, Andreon was too exhausted to stand. As his heavy body fell, a hand caught him. Are you all right? The soldier smiled and sat in front of Andreon. We express our respect for your highness's victory. Then they all cheered in unison. We respect the first prince's sword. We respect his fighting spirit. We express our respect for his victory. This strange reaction took Andreon by surprise. What is this? Just a moment ago, they wanted to tear me to pieces. Yuan then spoke up to explain. They are simple men by nature. Swords and victory. Nothing excites them more. Looking at your face, you must have thought you would incur their resentment. Bell walked up to him. His eyes filled with pride. A fair defeat is more valuable than a dirty victory. When both sides have fought their best, does winning or losing still matter? They looked a bit proud of the praise. Though, Denham will probably be a little regretful. The red-haired young man crossed his arms and laughed. Yes, because he has to offer the sword he was always so proud of to your highness. This was followed by unending laughter. How refreshing. He was too arrogant about that sword. Andreon lowered his head, laughing at himself. I thought everything I knew had been forgotten and abandoned along with the mana heart. But it seems at least one thing hasn't changed. The feeling he thought he had lost, he can now enjoy again. The nobility in defeat and respect for the strong. The spirit of knights. After the cultural exchange, it was time for Andreon to head back to the palace. But this time, he seemed a bit reluctant. Well then, until next time. Yuan placed a hand on his chest and bowed his head in response. I wish you good health until then. He replied politely. You stay healthy too. Count. After turning his head for 3 seconds, Andreon Liembeck had something else to say. Oh. Right? Count Wolodin. Please keep what happened during my stay here secret. The man tilted his head in confusion. Wouldn't it be more beneficial for your highness if it were made public? Andreon rubbed his chin, a mischievous look on his face. He thought of his dear brother waiting at home. There's someone I want to tease a little. After leaving Wolodin, the group of horses and people found a temporary resting place. We will make camp here for the night. Cuss informed Andreon of something. I will go scout the surroundings for a bit. He nodded in approval. Go ahead. Arwin was still staring intently at Andreon from behind. He turned his head and saw her looking lost. Thinking to himself, Arwin will adapt soon. With that, Andreon Leon Bekion and went into his private tent. I should go inside and rest. Unexpectedly, Adelia was already waiting there. Your Highness, you're back. He was speechless at her strange treatment. The person I recruited was supposed to be a sword genius with S-rank talent. Yet she's still doing things only a maid would do. Adelia didn't understand why he was sighing with a blank face. Your Highness, is there something that displeases you? Andreon Lasley stretched out on the cot. No. Forget it. You may leave. She replied helplessly. Yes, Your Highness. After Adelia bade and left, he tiredly thought about what to do next. The Lions of Steel Knights are different from what I thought. When I use the power of judgment, most ordinary knights don't possess sword talent exceeding rank. In the past, these were people who would find it difficult to reach the level of an intermediate sword master even after a lifetime of harsh training. Ordinary people who should have faded into hopelessness. And yet, people like that reach a level equivalent to a sword master in their 20 seconds or 30 seconds. The foundation possessed by a transcendent has incomparably declined, but the foundation of ordinary people has increased significantly. After connecting the dots, Andreon sat up instantly. It's because of the monocircles. My uncle is a figure who could have aimed for the transcendent realm in the past. That's why I was so dissatisfied when he threw that potential away. However, this era is one where there isn't even a chance to build achievements beyond the uncommon rank. In the end, it's all due to the flow of time. I have to admit it. I don't understand this era. He spoke the last words aloud. So I'll start learning again from scratch. Suddenly, someone who overheard him spoke from outside. That's a good mindset. Dell clapped his hands. Regardless of whether it matched Andreon's thoughts. It's not too late. If you work hard from now on, you can achieve your dream. He naively wondered to himself. No. What dream? He ignored the previous reaction and got straight to the point. Haven't you already captured the hearts of the Lions of Steel? If it were the other princes, they wouldn't have been able to blend in with them so naturally. It was unclear what Belvin Hat was thinking, but his eyes sparkled as if under a filter. That was a very wise decision. Ian. Of course. Andreon had no idea what was going on. What's wrong with this old man? He was confused by Belle's flowery words. Has my uncle gone mad? He clenched his fists and asked again. Don't you remember the conditions of the bet I made with you? Andreon reviewed a few bets. If it's the bet about defeating the third prince, that's still. Before he could finish, Belle cut him off. No. Our bet was to defeat a second circle knight. He was startled and pointed at himself. Then I guess I won the bet. Belle strode closer to him. I will do exactly as I promised then. Andreon still didn't understand the issue he was mentioning. Surprisingly, Belle thumped his chest and declared, I, Belvin Hat, as a count of the kingdom and commander of the 3rd Legion, will officially support the first prince of the kingdom, Andréon Leon Beck. Andréon cursed under his breath. What the hell is he talking about? Officially? Support? His quick mind finally caught up. Don't tell me. Belvin Hat was like the sun, giving a firm thumbs up. Just trust me. Andréon screamed internally. When did I ever say I wanted to be king? After that day, my uncle's declaration really became a bombshell. Everywhere in the castle were words of congratulations. Your Highness. Congratulations. We sincerely congratulate you. This is truly a joy for the kingdom. The newly assigned royal knights and soldiers were creating a commotion, along with the new servants and maids sent from the palace, bustling about. And I suddenly found myself in the center of it all. Andréon angrily pointed out the window and shouted, "This is chaos. Send them all back immediately." Cuss remained calm in the face of his outburst. Even if you order them to leave, they won't listen. Andréon Leon Beck grumbled incoherently. Then at least get them out of my sight. This is driving me crazy. Just as he wished. A moment later, the window was opened. Andréon's ears returned to their usual peace. Finally, some quiet. Isn't this better? But after just 3 seconds of comfort, the door was slammed open without mercy. Brother, are you there? Looking at the young man in front of him, he asked warily, why are you still here at this hour? He was the 3rd prince, Gillian Leon Beck. You put on quite an act, secretly learning swordsmanship from Baron Belvin Hat. And now, you even reveal such great ambition. He still didn't pay attention to the accusation. Learning what from whom? This? Gillian, already angry, received another unconvincing act of feigned ignorance. I was really going to save face for you. How could you do this? I was going to let you lose in a not too shameful way. Andréon propped his chin up and looked at him like a has-not-nosed kid. Wonderful. I moved to tears. Gillian's face dark, and as he pointed at him, brother, you have made a very big mistake. Because I will make you pay dearly for deceiving me. This guy. And that guy too. I told them I have no interest in the throne. I need to find the mastermind behind this. The mastermind was present, and Andréon explained clearly. So, uncle, I will cooperate for a while. So please withdraw at the appropriate time. Because I have no interest in things like the throne. He gritted his teeth in anger. Why did you go and start everything on your own without discussing it with me first? Bell, however, seemed to understand and smirked. Are you worried about the house of Belvin Hat? The Belvin Hats are the shield that protects the kingdom from the monsters of the northern mountains. He continued his firm reassurance. As long as the royal family and nobility do not forget the harshness of winter, nothing bad will happen to the house of Belvin Hat. He showed his displeasure but still replied, if that's the case, then that's a relief. His next words made Andréon reconsider. It's only a matter of time. It would have happened eventually anyway. Do you really not know the fate of a firstborn son who cannot inherit the throne? The situation won't change just because you keep running away. If you need time to accept reality, I will give you as much as you like. However, remember this well. The legitimacy of the firstborn will only disappear when you die. Andréon kept muttering even after Bell had left. I already said it. No matter how much time he gives me, I won't change. What I truly need to find are the powers and strength that have reached the transcendent realm. So there's no way I'd want something as trivial as the right to the throne. I'm sure I used to think that. At the royal hall, it seemed the banquet was being held. The announcement echoed throughout the room. The legitimate blood of the Leon Beck kingdom. The firstborn of the Leon Beck royal family. With his appearance, the calls continued. The first prince, His Highness Andréon Leon Beck, is entering. Besides the gazes as sharp as daggers, were the proud eyes of Bell and Taylor. And of course, the thought of not inheriting continued until the banquet began. Andréon slowly descended the stairs. His face held the solemnity of a prince. Those present began to flatter him. How amazing. His dignified manner is just like His Majesty's when he was young. In his heart, Andréon inwardly scorned what was happening. Making such a fuss just because I lost a little weight? Is this the nobility of the kingdom? What a farce. Because the people in front of him all share the same characteristic malice. Andréon's face was cold, not moving an inch while standing among these people. It's the kind of evil karma accumulated by those who specialize in plundering and trampling on the lives of others. To think they all carry such filth within them. The only one worth paying attention to among them is, he walked past the people who were still discussing him. Seeing His Highness grow up like this, Andréon walked straight to Taylor and spoke enthusiastically. Taylor, since you're here, you should come and greet me. He also replied warmly. Your Highness, I apologize. I wanted to thank you for the invitation. Andréon observed Taylor and thought to himself. Those who may not have talent but are not corrupted. Yes, that's enough to be a vessel for the seeds I will plant from now on. The conversation was temporarily interrupted by a knight's command. Attention. Officially recognized by His Majesty the Emperor of the Borgo and any empire. The Marquis of Montpellier of Borgo and Eni. Ambassador Gui Recti Borgo and Eni Montpellier is entering. Andreon's face froze when he heard the name. What? The one who appeared was the ambassador of the Borgo and Eni Empire. Gui Recti Borgo and Eni Montpellier. He had a smile on his face and slowly approached Andreon. Long time no see. Prince. His eyes widened in surprise. Memories of his past life were recalled. Borgo and Eni. The sworn enemy that my friend and I fought for a long time 100 years ago. Carrying the name that left countless scars on this country. He dares to stand before me. A noble accidentally tripped, and the wine in his glass went flying. Andreon's clothes were soaked. The noble quickly turned to apologize. Your Highness. Are you all right? I was in such a hurry to greet you that I sincerely apologize. Your Highness. Andreon used his eyes like bullets to shoot at him. However, the truth was that his eyes were looking towards Gui Rec. The space gradually fell into a deathly silence. Andreon turned to leave with an announcement. I must go and change. The noble bowed his head in apology. This old body disobeyed and committed a great discourtesy. On this side, Gus was already waiting with a towel in hand. Your Highness, let me escort you. Andreon glanced at the person who had just spilled wine on him and asked, who is he? Gus followed his gaze and quickly replied, that is the Marquis Bielefeld. Andreon took the towel and walked away, wiping himself. A smirk was on his lips. Bielefeld. So not all of them are rotten. Well, that cooled my head a bit. The night fell quickly. He was left alone, sitting in the darkness. The door opened once more, and the person who entered was none other than Bell. I heard there was an incident. His face was filled with worry. Bell approached while explaining. Marquis Bielefeld said you looked like you were about to cause big trouble. It seems he wasn't completely talking nonsense. Bell sat down on the chair next to Andreon. What on earth are you planning to do? Only then did he speak up to explain. I'm not that irrational. I just can't understand it. The treacherous Borgo and any family flaunting their power in the heart of the kingdom. And the nobles showing them sincere reverence. Something they don't even give to the royal family. The atmosphere tends to be called peace. And a relationship too oppressive to be called an alliance. A question was posed by him with a tense face. How on earth did the country end up like this? Feat made Bell fall into deep thought as well. It's not a particularly special history. In the past, the kingdom fiercely resisted countless invasions from the empire. But outstanding knights stepped forward to repel the empire. However, as time passed, the empire grew stronger and the gap widened. Before an empire that had become a great power, the kingdom ultimately had no choice but to kneel. Hearing this, Andreon's eyes suddenly widened as if he had understood something. Don't tell me. It was because of that thing? The story continued. Although it was a small nation on the edge of the continent, the kingdom once possessed something that allowed them to confront the mighty empire. From the founding of the nation, flawless achievements were accumulated. Some were common, some uncommon, sometimes heroic tales, sometimes legends, and even myths. Battle songs. Andreon saw the blue energy in his hand and thought sadly. We've lost all of that. After a while, he spoke again. Uncle, I've changed my mind. Bell was a little confused by the sudden statement. What do you mean? Andreon placed a hand on his chest and declared. Becoming king. I'll give it a try. Bell couldn't hide the surprise on his face. However, Andreon himself had already started thinking about how to achieve that goal. I might regret this decision, but it's something I must do. Time continued to pass, even as he was lost in thought. After all, I built half of this country with my own hands. The second day of the banquet, Andreon, in a completely new outfit, was walking down the corridor. The announcement of his arrival rang out majestically. The first prince, Andreon Leonbeck. His Highness is entering. The Northern Baron Belvin had is entering. Andreon's face was cold as he entered. Today, no one dared to approach him to start a conversation. Andreon looked at the nobles before him and thought, their etiquette is so sloppy. It's worse than how they treat a foreign noble. His expression didn't change in the slightest. Yet, old memories were being stirred in his mind. In the past, when my friend stood before all the people, no one thought he would become king. Because he was just a country boy who ran away from some remote village. Even among those who had been deprived of everything and cast out, he was not of noble birth. His steps were slow but firm. His story was written from that very first step. Nevertheless, that young boy stepped forward before all the people. Andreon connected it to the present. Just like me right now. Blue energy enveloped him as his voice rang out. Oh, you who have eyes but do not see. That energy quickly spread throughout the room. Andreon's expression was one of excitement. Before the flock of sheep, I stand tall. I sing the song of the monarch. Current abilities cannot meet the rank of the battle song. A portion of the battle song is omitted. Singing only one verse of the battle song, equivalent to 1/4. Under the pressure of this power on his body, Andreon couldn't help but feel uncomfortable. Compared to the song of the true dragon's demise, It's not unbearable. Since this battle song is only of heroic rank, not mythical. His eyes suddenly widened. However, no battle song is more fitting for the current situation than this one. A figure emerged from the crowd. The nobles all wore expressions of astonishment. The song had transformed into a suit of armor for Andreon. Now, this is enough. You can all stop. Before he could finish his sentence, something from behind caught his attention. Andreon quickly turned his head. This aura. An elf. The mysterious person spoke up. How surprising. To think there is still someone who remembers the battle song. Andreon's eyes widened in horror. No. That's not just an elf. That woman is. Why is that crazy bitch here? The most beautiful creation the gods ever made. A kind race that never harms even the smallest creature without reason. The gardeners of the great forest with a lifespan of 300 to 1. 0 years. That is the image of elves in everyone's mind. But, in reality, they are cruel creatures that use their beauty as bait to destroy their opponents. Those called high elves, the upper-class elves, born with the qualities of a hero, are even more dangerous. Moreover, she is not just on the level of an ordinary high elf. One who has lived nearly 1.0 years. An elder high elf. A magic swordswoman who dances on the battlefield. Sigrun. A member of the subjugation team that slew the mad dragon 400 years ago. And also, Sigrun, at that time, perversely asked, if your master dies, do you want to come with me? I'll make sure you're never bored for the rest of your life. She smiled, touching the body of Ron, which was then a sword, and spoke lovingly. So, what if it's a sword? It's because it's a sword that I desire it even more. The madwoman who had tormented me to a horrifying degree. Just remembering it is enough to make the present-day Andreon shudder in fear. Could it be that she recognized me? And just when I sang the song of the monarch that she also knows so well. Sigrun approached and spoke. Have we met somewhere before? Andreon, opposite her, frantically shook his head. Seeing this, she muttered. Strange. Why do I have this sense of familiarity? He slowly approached Sigrun and spoke. This is the first time I've seen an elf with my own eyes. The other nobles also slowly approached Sigrun. Really? Is it true? She placed a hand on her chin, feigning deep thought. Then she coldly declared a word that was enough to make Andreon freeze solid. Lies. In his heart, he thought. 400 years ago, Sigrun was already a top-tier expert in her prime. So there's no telling what kind of monster she has become now. Now Sigrun began to present her thoughts. The reaction of humans when they first see an elf is usually one of two types. The vast majority will be mesmerized. But those with a high level of attainment will become wary. She reached out her hand and nearly touched Andreon. However, as I see it. Then she leaned in closer with an observation. Your highness doesn't seem to have reached that high level yet. Andreon pushed her finger away while replying. It's just that my aesthetic taste is a bit different. This action caused Sigrun's expression to darken in a flash. She put on her hood and turned to leave. I am very pleased to have met you. Even if only for a moment. Only then did Andreon allow himself to breathe a sigh of relief. I've passed one hurdle for now. Comments rang out as the girls appeared one by one. Too young. And this one seems to not want to make eye contact with me. Another one was called up. Could it be that she's here to fight me? Followed by a girl who said it was too late. There were even women with different expressions. Not interesting at all. The king's face was so tired she could barely stand. Andreon standing next to her was the same. She turned to him and began to lecture. This is the selection for the crown princess. You can't expect them to be like the women you usually meet. A crown princess must be virtuous, intelligent, healthy, and have a strong family backing. Unexpectedly, an announcement came from outside. Your Majesty, the delegation of the elves is requesting an audience. The queen nodded in agreement. All right. The person who appeared was none other than Sigrun. She bowed respectfully. Sigrun of the Mistletoe tribe greets the beautiful Queen Margarita. The queen opposite her also responded with a similarly gentle smile. It has been a long time since the elves visited the kingdom. This is quite a surprise. Sigrun opposite her didn't beat around the bush and asked directly. It seems the queen is looking for a spouse for his highness. Correct? The queen had no intention of hiding it. Just as you suspect. As soon as she heard those words, she stated directly. I am a high elf. In human terms, I could be considered a noble from an ancient family. Andreon stood to the side, just smiling wryly and thinking. Wait, what is she trying to say? Sigrun continued to act innocent. And coincidentally, my age is not that different from his highness's. Only Andreon knew the truth. Lies. A difference of nearly 1,000 years. And she says it's not much. How can she tell such a shameless lie without batting an eye? They say the beautiful elves are immortal, and are the ideal life partners for humans. And there are those who are always by their side to serve them. In human terms, that would be a knightly order. Actually, from the first moment I saw his highness, I felt my destiny was linked to yours. Andreon was made to ponder by her words. Elves never lie about their destiny and fate. Were those words true? Hearing this, the queen had to gasp and think. How bold. A declaration that was enough to make the nobles buzz with discussion. Come to think of it, I heard elves take destiny very seriously. So there's going to be a marriage alliance with the elves. Oh my. This time, Andreon couldn't hold back and acted immediately. He grabbed Sigrun's wrist. Then, without another word, he immediately pulled her away. We need to talk in private. The nobles watched and commented with annoyance. What an insolent brat. The door to the room was quickly closed. Andreon turned to look at the person next to him. Sigrun. And he didn't beat around the bush when he asked directly. Tell me your real purpose. Sigrun had a smile on her face. I just came for the friendly relations between my tribe and the kingdom. Andreon laid his cards on the table with her. I'll ask again. Elder Elf Sigrun, the executioner who has shouldered the sins of her tribe for hundreds of years. The sword of the mistletoe tribe. He posed the question. Is your purpose espionage or execution? This time, Sigrun didn't hide it and smiled. Interesting. How do you know about me? Andreon's face gradually became tense. He observed the killing intent emanating from Sigrun and then mentally assessed her. To me right now, she is a monster that cannot be measured. The fact that she could sense destiny from me means her rank is so high that she can glimpse the past etched into my soul. Sigrun questioned him. Not quickly, not slowly. Each word containing a threat. You know I am the executioner. But you don't know how foolish it is to not keep quiet in front of me? Andreon had a smirk on his face. I know very well that it's just as foolish as running your mouth in front of the executioner. Andreon changed the subject. Enough with the jokes. Sigrun, don't interfere with my destiny. In his mind, he was calculating. Right now, she's just feeling a little curious about me. At this rate, the destiny of the small human will be torn apart by the hands of that crazy elf. If that's the case, then it's better to rouse a greater interest from her. To become something that can't be just tasted a few times and thrown away. Or a delicacy that needs to be aged for a long time before being slowly savored. Sigrun slowly approached. Her face filled with excitement as she observed Andreon. Who are you? Really? He maintained a calm demeanor and replied. The me of today is just a pitiful prince abandoned and by his own father. Sigrun asked confused. So your true self? Only to receive a vague answer. Who knows? A smile formed on Andreon's lips. If you want to know, just wait and see. His domineering words made Sigrun fall silent. Then she commented. No wonder I found it strange. I was wondering why I was sent on this trivial mission for no apparent reason. But now, I understand. It was because of you. Andreon's face went pale. His exhaustion evident. This woman always gives me the creeps. They returned to the room where the nobles and the queen were waiting. The sight of them holding hands astonished the crowd. Andreon stopped in front of the queen. He began seriously. I have something to say. I will be engaged to Sigrun. Even Andreon himself couldn't believe the words that had just come out of his own mouth. I never thought the day would come when I'd say that name so affectionately. Right now, I can't go against Sigrun's interest. The queen leaned forward and asked, an engagement with an elf. In his mind, Andreon was calculating. Even if I can buy some time. This is a serious matter that cannot be decided hastily. So I want to take some time to get to know her better. The queen tilted her head, calculating carefully. All right, that's fine. In Andreon's mind, he thought. For the queen, this is time to calculate the benefits of this marriage. For Sigrun, this is time for the dish named meat to mature. But for me, it will be time to cultivate the strength to escape from this crazy elf. A powerful hand slammed down, knocking over a teacup. Damn it. A stream of curses echoed through the room. That bastard, who has nothing on me other than being born first, dares to act so high and mighty. Jillian's face was now flushed with anger. He remembered Andreon's actions and was so angry he saw red. Lately, not only did he get our uncle's sudden support, but he also snatched the flower of Lion's Heart City. This time, he even dares to touch an elf. I thought women were just beautiful at best. But I never expected the elf race to have a presence that far exceeds imagination. Jillian then smirked and muttered with a smug look. That's right. I have a sparring session scheduled with that man soon. If I kill him, it'll be a huge mess. It would be better to just slash him a few times so he can't be a man anymore. I will trample you under my feet so miserably. And night was already waiting. His voice rang out. This sparring match is officiated by me, the captain of the Royal Knights, the one bestowed with the title of Glory of the Silver Lion. I, Stucker, declare that no one may object to the outcome of the match. I invite both your highnesses to draw your swords. Andreon, on one side. Let out along. Lazy on. It's just a sword fight. Why so many words? Jillian, on the other hand, arrogantly drew his sword. I've prepared a lot for you. I've brought quite an audience. Are you pleased? His words were full of challenge. I hope you won't disappoint the people who came to watch. Andreon replied calmly. I already saw them. You talk too much. Jillian's anger flared. And he roared, "After the match ends, I hope you still have the energy to chat like this." Andreon, seeing him charge forward to attack, replied coldly, "I was originally planning to play with you a bit." He moved quickly and ended the match with a single blow. "But I'm a bit busy right now." Jillian collapsed to the ground without even a chance to react. Everyone in the audience was completely stunned. Even the match supervisor's eyes went wide with astonishment. Is that really the first prince I once knew? And Rian's expression didn't change in the slightest from start to finish. He sheathed his sword. Just then, the supervisor slowly spoke up. "As a public official and the supervisor of this match, I declare that His Highness, the third prince, is unable to continue. The winner is His Highness, the first prince." And Rian glanced back with a look of disdain. His face tensed as he muttered, "Why are so many of these so-called nobles flocking to watch kids fight?" The nobles began to whisper amongst themselves. Did Prince Jillian really lose? He's a promising to circle pinnacle of the kingdom. How could he possibly lose to the first prince? He only started training a few months ago. Jillian woke up with his head covered in bandages. He practically shot up, cursing, "That damn useless bastard." He then stormed over, threw open the door, and declared, "Get ready. I'm going back to settle this with him." A voice from behind interrupted him. "Your Highness," the knight reported calmly. "His Highness, the first prince, left the royal capital with Count Ban Lo Hat as soon as the match ended." Jillian asked impatiently, "Left? Left for where?" The knight answered hesitantly, "Well, it said he's heading north, to the domain of the Ban Lo Hat family." Boo, riding beside Andrian, remarked, "You've become quite a skilled rider." And Rian smiled and replied, "Things like this are easy to pick up once you get the hang of it, right?" His nephew's smug attitude made Boo grimace. "I spoke too soon. You should learn a little humility. But why are you in such a hurry? The banquet is over. Why not rest for a few days?" And Rain calmly explained, "Because there's no place for me in the royal capital. I have no intention of seeking support from those who can't even recognize their own country's master and only know how to suck up to the empire's hunting dogs." Boo, at his side, commented, "Compared to those nobles, soldiers and knights suit you better, don't they? They may not be as cunning as the nobles, but they're far more steadfast. Do you think winning them over will be easy?" Hearing this, a smile spread across Andreon's lips. "Go through life and death together, and bonds will form naturally. What's there to worry about?" Boo then voiced his thoughts. "I still can't shake the feeling that you're being too hasty." Andreon thought to himself, "About that, if I hesitate, I'll be forced to marry that crazy woman. In the past, she set her sights on meta disastrous end. Before that happens, I need to get stronger. That's impossible in the peaceful royal capital. So I have no choice but to leave. The place to accelerate my growth and to sharpen my blade is somewhere else. A place where a person's character is tested the most. A place where the most battle hymns are born. The place I need to go is the battlefield." As they arrived at a new location, Boo announced, "That mountain range is the Sword's Edge Mountains. The border our family has spent a lifetime defending." And Rian shivered as the wind blew past him. "It's freezing." Seeing this, the older man kindly suggested, "If you can't bear it, you can ride in the carriage." And Rian shook his head. "No need. I have to get used to this cold eventually." Another man's voice came from the carriage. "It seems I'm being a bother. This old man has taken over everyone's carriage." And Rian looked at him with curiosity. "Why are you tagging along anyway?" "There's nothing to see," Niccolo explained enthusiastically. "If not now, when else would I get the chance to witness this treacherous northern region? Besides, the book I'm about to write will surely be useful to your Highness." And Rian was annoyed by this attitude. What an annoying old man. His gaze shifted elsewhere. It landed on Arwin. Andreon slowly approached and asked with concern, "Arwin, are you alright? It must be cold riding up front." "Huh?" She quickly turned her head and insisted, "I'm fine." And Rian looked at her trembling body and replied, "If you're tired, you can switch shifts at any time." Arwin adamantly refused. How can a knight seek comfort for herself? Her attitude pleased Andrian, who noted, "It's good to have someone so full of spirit." Arwan's face flushed as she silently moved on, and Rian then glanced back. On the other hand, it seems the ones forced to follow by royal decree are quite displeased. If K or Kex were here, he would have whipped them into shape. The reason for this was that the king had previously ordered, "The royal knights are not your private guard. Don't you have plenty of your own knights? Though I doubt you truly see them as such." His father's words had infuriated Rian. That narrow-minded old man. That was also why Cuz couldn't accompany him to the north. No matter how many crazy things this body has done, I'm still his flesh and blood. The king's attitude is a bit too much. There must be some hidden reason I'm not aware of. Seeing the snow begin to fall heavier, Boo urged, "We need to pick up the pace. If we don't hurry, we'll be trapped by the blizzard, unable to move forward or back." The snowflakes soon turned into a raging blizzard. The march was so harsh that you couldn't hear the person right next to you. Bu looked back with concern. He quickly gave an order. Abandon the carriages. Keep only the horses and proceed on foot. And Rian glanced around and noted to himself that the shout was amplified with monosound. He then signaled to the person inside the carriage. Adelia. Adelia quickly took his hand. Your Highness. Thank you. And Rian replied softly. It's all right. Arwin ran over. Concerned. Your Highness. Are you okay? And Rian calmly replied. I'm fine. The others were in chaos. Watch out, over there. We're going to crash. Wait a minute. The wind is too strong. And Rian acted quickly and gave instructions. Arwin. Take care of Adelia. Arwin acknowledged the order. Yes, Your Highness. He walked over and ordered the fools. Drop your shields. Holding shields that big. Of course the wind will blow you away. Ditch everything cumbersome except your swords. We can come back for it later. You, the big guy. Take the lead. Form a single file line. The other knights watched Andreon's actions and couldn't help but be impressed. Looks like we won't need to step in. We were planning to give him a little welcoming party and then help out. Does the prince have actual combat experience? Every step through the blizzard felt as heavy as lead. Everyone pushed forward. Suddenly, someone collapsed. A report quickly reached Andrian. Your Highness. A soldier has fallen behind. He moved almost instantly. Out of my way. And grabbed the collar of the unconscious man. And Rand then hoisted him onto his shoulder. Then he barked gruffly. What are you doing? Why aren't you moving? They could only obey. Yes, Your Highness. The group continued towards the castle ahead. Andreon panted heavily as the hellish march was about to end. Everyone's steps were heavy with exhaustion. Andreon set the man down, looked ahead, and muttered. This damn blizzard. If it's going to stop, just stop already. The sky cleared up as if nothing had ever happened. Bu slowly stepped forward. Only then did he stop. He then slowly turned around. A banner was raised. Bu announced steadily. As the rightful lord of Ban Lo Hat and commander of the kingdom's third corps, I welcome the visit of the first prince. And Rian's face lit up with excitement upon hearing those words. Bu smiled and declared, I sincerely welcome you to Winter Castle. This is Winter Castle, the northernmost fortress of the kingdom, which exists to stop the monsters living in the Sword's Edge Mountains. A bulwark against the beast. Gruff knights grumbled. Man, the moment there's an opening there, the monsters just pour down. It's brutally cold and dangerous, and the survival rate is extremely low. It's a place I'd never want to go to a second time. The worst possible post for an ordinary soldier. Even the noble women were buzzing with discussion. Winter Castle is perhaps the Ban Lo Hat family's greatest weapon, but also its greatest shackle. What's there to even see in that cold, treacherous land? The nobles of the realm could speculate on the political standing of Winter Castle. But then, the great gates were pushed open once more, and a figure with black hair emerged from within. For those born and raised in Ban Lo Hat, it is a place of duty and a source of pride they must carry for their entire lives. The young man placed a hand on his chest and announced loudly, I, Vincent Ban Lo Hat, will conclude my duties as acting commander as of today and return to my post as captain of the Ranger Company. It's a relief that you've returned safely. Father. Bu placed a hand on his son's shoulder and continued. You've worked hard. Vincent. A teasing question came from behind. What's this? Uncle? You have a son? Bu rolled his eyes as he replied. How old do you think I wouldn't have a single child? Andreon pointed at Vincent and continued. Looking closely. There is a resemblance. Especially that stubborn-looking corner of the mouth. Bu began the introductions. Hey. Vincent. This is His Highness. First Prince Andreon. Vincent bowed his head in greeting. Captain of the Ranger Company. Vincent of House Ban Lo Hat. Greets His Highness. The First Prince. His formal gesture pleased Andrian. A pleasure to meet you. The truth was, Vincent was inwardly seething with dissatisfaction. Winter Castle is a fortress for true warriors who would sacrifice their lives for a noble cause. It's not a place for some scoundrel exiled from the capital to bring his entourage of women and loiter around. A knight from the castle suggested to Andrian. Your Highness, I will give you a tour of the castle. He accepted the kind offer. All right. As for Vincent, he was so angry a vein was popping on his forehead. Why would father bring someone like him here? Father, what is all this about? Bu replied quietly. It's just as you've heard. I've decided to become Andreon's patron, and he will be staying in Ban Lo Hat for a while. The more he heard, the less he could accept it. Isn't he the outcast that His Majesty abandoned? Didn't you yourself criticize him as a worthless good-for-nothing? This remark from his son made Bu glance to the side. He simply offered a soft comment. People can change. He followed it with a piece of advice. I have just one thing to ask of you. Vincent. Observe him without any prejudice. They soon moved to another room. What's the progress on clearing out the monster lairs? Vincent was the one to report. We have been continuously exterminating them. but there are still quite a few areas that haven't been cleared. Now that you have returned, Father, I plan to take official action. Bu moved on to another matter. And what about the remaining forces? His son quickly replied, the Ranger Company will. A finger landed on a piece on the map as another voice spoke. The problem is the orcs. A small group of less than 20 orcs has occupied the mountain pass area. Hearing this, Bu quickly replied, a group that size would be difficult to handle with just the Ranger's arrows. Vincent confirmed. Yes. That's why I'm currently selecting night station in the city. Unexpectedly. And Rain cut into the conversation with the declaration. This matter. Let me handle it. His single statement was enough to fill the room with murmurs of protest. Your Highness. The orcs in the Sword's Edge Mountains are very different from ordinary orcs. If something were to happen, even the Ranger Company's campaign would be affected. At that moment, Andreon looked back and asked for Bu's opinion. Uncle? He understood and turned to Vincent. Vincent, what is the confirmed size and strength of the orcs? He reported in great detail. According to current confirmations, there are 20 at most. The presence of ORC warriors or ORC mages has not been confirmed, but we cannot rule out the possibility. Then, Bu turned to Andreon and asked, are you confident? His father's words shocked Vincent so much that he slammed the table and stood up. Father, that mountain pass is one of the main routes the Rangers frequently use. If it were to become a battleground, future operations would become immensely more difficult. Furthermore, if anything were to happen to the security of His Highness, the standing of Ban Lo Hat would also be. And Rian, listening on the side, just chuckled to himself. You raised a smart kid, didn't you? However, Bu's decision was clear. That's enough worrying. Ian, what do you need? Andreon began to lay out his plan. First, prepare about 3 guides. Also, re-equip my troops a bit. If you have any crossbows, lend me some of those too. Bu nodded in confirmation. Those requests aren't difficult at all. I'll have them prepared. And so, only Vincent remained, completely unable to believe what was happening before his eyes. The soldiers quickly received the announcement. Time to move out. One of them asked, confused. Huh? What are you talking about? And Ran calmly explained. We've received a mission to subjugate the orcs. The enemy count is 20. There may or may not be ORC warriors or mages. The knight scratched his head and replied, looking perplexed. Your Highness, the 3rd Corps is already here. So why are we? Our duty is to escort your Highness. This response only gave him more ammunition. That's perfect. Isn't it? You have to follow me to protect me anyway. The 3rd Corps will be in touch today. For now, go get your equipment. Then report back to me. At this point, they could only obey. Yes, your Highness. And Rian narrowed his eyes and thought, in any case, they're the soldiers I've been given. So I'll have to train them to be useful. They seemed unreliable during the blizzard, but they are, after all, elites carefully selected by the royal family. Their abilities are quite good. Information about one man was displayed. Characteristics of Hansteck's swordsmanship, tactics, fortress defense, infantry formation. Although there is one guy mixed in who looks a bit suspicious. A new day quickly dawned. The time for the punitive expedition had come. And Rian looked at Vincent in front of him and exclaimed in disbelief. He's the guide. His attitude irked the other man. Your Highness may not be aware, but if this campaign fails, it will cause a much bigger obstacle than you think. And Rian simply brushed it off. It won't fail. This remark infuriated him. You're being too naive. The animosity between the two was palpable. An information panel appeared before Andreon. He read the text and assessed inwardly. Can't view his status window. He must be at least a 3-circle knight. Among the group in the back, only one is a real ranger. The rest are all knights disguised as regular rangers. They probably plan to bypass me and handle things themselves if something goes wrong. Well, I can let this much slide. And Rand turned and signaled. All right then. Adelia, I'm not taking you with me. So don't you worry. His words made her a little sad. My apologies, Your Highness. But the truth was, and Rian was worried for himself, because if her characteristic develops incorrectly, I'll be the one in trouble. They began their march. Vincent constantly reminded them. We need to pace ourselves and conserve as much stamina as possible. If your stamina drops, your limbs will go numb, making it very difficult to fight. Especially in a place like the Sword's Edge Mountains where snow and ice accumulate. You must pay even more attention to your footing. Andreon's face grew dark. This guy is even chattier than his father. The figure of a rabbit appeared from the bushes. Seeing those around him grow tense. And Rian thought, a rabbit? Looking through a spyglass, they quickly located the monsters. Several ferocious orcs were having a meal. Vincent's expression grew serious. He turned back and signaled. There's a group of orcs ahead. What's your plan? Andreon answered by raising one hand. The knights quickly took their positions and loaded their crossbows. The ORC turned its head at the sound. And Rian advanced towards the monsters. A wicked smile spread across his face. Hello. It's been a while. The command was given swiftly. Fire. Bolts flew straight into the group of orcs. And Rian got into a combat stance. His footsteps thundering. His eyes sharp, and as he slowly drew his weapon, Andreon charged at the ORC in front of him. A roar filled with murderous intent erupted. And Rian wore a thrilled smile as he prepared to dive into battle. He unleashed a powerful first slash. And the scent of blood filled the air. And Rian continued to press forward. His face was a mask of pure excitement. This is what I've always missed and craved. Excellent. This is the true atmosphere of a battlefield. Just then, Arwin rushed over with a warning. Your Highness. It's dangerous. However, Andreon loudly stopped her. Don't come over here. His words took Arwin by surprise, making her hesitate for a moment. And Rian was completely focused on the battle. A smile played on his face. Because if she got caught up in this, it was a time more than 400 years ago, and even longer than that. An era when orcs were not monsters, but one of the rightful masters of this continent. This isn't a story of myths or heroes, just of a man who didn't even leave his name behind in history. The song of a pitiful man who hated orcs. It was the sorrowful requiem of a father who fought until his strength gave out, piling the green corpses high like a mountain. The ephemeral song of an extraordinary avenger. Beneath it, a pool of fresh red blood formed. I sing the Avenger's song. A money pouch was suddenly thrown down roughly. Joseph quickly said, I heard Winter Castle is a place where people drop dead at the slightest thing. The old man, on the other hand, calmly reassured him. Don't worry too much. There won't be any fighting. The Count began to sneer. What can that trash prince possibly accomplish there? It's obvious he's just planning to help in the castle to steal credit from his maternal uncle. Then, his tone became smug. What's important isn't that piece of trash. The Ban Low Hat. You are to monitor the movements of Winter Castle. Report anything suspicious to me. On his end, Joseph quietly tightened his grip on the money pouch. The other party questioned him again. Can you do it? Yes. And soon after, he replied, I will do my best. My Lord Count. Returning to the present, Joseph was terrified. This is clearly what I heard. It was all a lie. Before him now was a frenzied ORC. This is completely different from what I was told. Arwin shouted. First rank. Hold formation and advance. Just as she finished speaking, the ORC began its attack on them. In the midst of the crisis, Joseph froze in fear. I'm done for. What do I do? The command rang out again, forcing him to raise his spear. Second rank. Attack. A moment after the thrust, Joseph slowly peeked his eyes open. And so, the ORC he struck seemed completely unaffected. Terrified, Joseph hastily dropped his weapon. I'm dead. At that moment, the person behind him suddenly shot past. Taking advantage of the monster's distraction, Arwin acted swiftly. As she dashed past the ORC, she sliced off one of its arms. It collapsed right under her blade. Even the severed arm frightened him into stepping back. As for Arwin, she sternly reminded him. This is a battlefield. Don't drop your weapons so carelessly. Joseph quickly nodded. Yes. Following that, a group of soldiers began to surround Arwin. She also pointed her sword at the orcs and ordered the troops to prepare for battle. After giving the command, Arwin felt a bit apprehensive. Their numbers are quite large. It seems it will be difficult to deal with all of them with our current numbers. Suddenly, her eyes widened in shock at the thick scent of blood. The ORC in front of her was suddenly impaled. Their screams echoed, making Joseph's face turn pale. Even the other soldiers were shock stiff. As for Arwin, she was completely stunned to see a spray of red blood. Meanwhile, Rian was calmly pulling his sword from his target. The ORC's body fell heavily, adding to the tense atmosphere. At that moment, the thirsty flame within Rian grew stronger. Sensing something was off, Arwin tentatively asked, Your Highness. However, he didn't answer, only slowly raised his head. Next, Rian charged forward despite the shouts to stop him. Your Highness. Protect him. In response, his steps only quickened. In his mind, Rian recalled old battles. It's still not enough. Back then, his master used him to strike down an ORC. No matter how many I kill. He didn't stop there. Felling another one. And killing more is still not enough. Yet the man's expression remained impassive, endlessly seeking the blood of his enemies. Rian recalled the man's aura. How he had wandered the barren lands ruled by the orcs. A ferocious ORC swung its axe down, but he leapt high into the air. Seizing the opportunity, the man incinerated it directly. After felling it, he calmly walked on. Now, the snow was stained beneath his feet. The mana in his heart long since depleted. His body, stumbling and burning with a red glow, still did not stop. Little by little, he looked up, drinking the blood and chewing the flesh of the orcs. And in an instant, his hair turned white. With every step, the man grew older and weaker. The magic sword in his hands supported him, burning away the last of his life force for his final wish. Those who were slaughtered until not even a piece of them remained. As the one who witnessed it all, his face darkened with terror, along with a deathful painting. It was a requiem for his wife and daughter. Returning to the battle, his eyes instantly widened, and finally, his attention was fixed on a red flag. As he faced his lifelong, sworn enemy, his body was battered and covered in wounds. A weak smile bloomed on his face. Then, in the next second, he charged like a wild beast to face the ORC king. He closed in on it directly. For the first time, he tried to attack its head. However, the ORC easily caught him. Then it squeezed tightly and slammed him down. His entire body smashed hard into the snow. The fatal blow left him dazed. There were no more chances. A moment later, the ORC king slowly raised its fist. Left behind, the warrior was motionless. But the man had not given up until the very end. He struggled to draw each weak breath. At the same time, his vision began to blur. Never told to anyone. In the end, he couldn't utter the words. It was a story no one knew. And in his hand, Rowan lay quietly. Perhaps I am the only one who remembers all of this. The sudden interruption of the memory startled Enrian. Around him now were only the large corpses of orcs. Suddenly, Enrian heard a familiar sound nearby. Looking over, he realized the battle was still going on. Knights, hold back the orcs. The rest of you, contain them. Enrian's palm quickly clenched into a fist. At the same time, a light flashed in his eyes. I remember now. With this newfound feeling, a chaotic flame surged within him. The Avengers song is an unfinished one. Then Enrian told himself, I must complete this song. With that determination, he struck down one ORC after another. After dealing with 3 in a row, Enrian shot off like an arrow. He stabbed it straight through the stomach. Blood spurted out, but Enrian remained as emotional as before. A new verse has been added to the Avengers song. The lyrics rang in his head, piling the sickly green corpses into a high mountain. A pool of red blood slowly gathers below. Reaching this part, Enrian suddenly mumbled, and I stand before that place. He stood before that ORC as the Avengers song echoed. And I stand before that place, in memory of your soul. When it ended, the system delivered a notification: the Avengers song has changed to the Requiem song. As his senses returned, Enrian glanced around. He quickly saw the figures of Boo and Vincent behind him, and the ORC's banner was taken and snapped in two. Vincent didn't hesitate to declare, the orcs have been completely exterminated. At the same time, he thought, I declare victory. As soon as he finished, Vincent shouted again, this is our victory. Meanwhile, Andreon grew curious. That person's name. Looking at him, he recalled. It was Vincent Van Lohat, wasn't it? The heir to a family that saw fighting monsters as their lifelong mission. The man who sacrificed his life in the past with the desire to exterminate all orcs. Andreon began to wonder, could he have the same name as that pitiful avenger? Back then, the man had whispered, even if there is a next life. His tone grew more determined. I will definitely. That thought made Andreon exclaim. What a strange coincidence.